Good evening. Start Board of Directors meeting. Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, with the Wyndham High School Auditorium. Time is 6:30 on the dot. And roll call, please.
Sure. Kate Ricks.
Here.
Jessica Bridges. Jenny Butler.
Here.
Jody Harrell.
Here.
Caitlin Downs.
Here.
Pete Hensler. Sharp Jewell.
Here.
Kate Levier. Christina Swan.
Here.
Al Connor.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. Okay, next item on the agenda is public input. I should have a few remarks. I'd like to welcome you all this evening during this our meeting. I'd like to review a few guidelines for this evening's public comment. The board will listen carefully to all comments, but will not respond to the speaker. Each person is permitted 3 minutes in total to speak. The 3-minute mark, the timer will go off and your time with the meeting will conclude. The audio will be turned off if the time limit is not adhered to. If you've not finished your comments, you may send your complete statement to the board. We would welcome that. Speakers should address the board. There should be no interaction between the speaker and the audience. Any complaints or discussion of RSU 14 employees is not permitted. Complaints should follow the process outlined in policy KED, public complaints about school personnel. Conversations amongst the audience should be moved out of the auditorium during public comment. They are distracting to the board, audience members, and are not respectful to those who are speaking. I will stop the proceedings if necessary to allow people to move outside to the hallway if needed. The board welcomes you to express your concerns and suggestions related to matters of the school. When you come to the microphone over here, please state your full name and the town that you reside in. And let's begin. Thank you.
I guess I'm always first up. Marge Garoni, Wyndham. I wasn't going to speak again, but after what happened at last week's school board meeting, which I felt was very disrespectful and rude, well, here I am again. I never thought I would have to say this to people who know their children are listening and watching how they behave. So when there is someone at the mic and it's their turn to speak, the audience should be courteous enough to let them finish without listening to comments and downright heckling in the background. Everyone gets a chance to speak, so please respect that. Until it's your turn, and then you can have this say. I know that I've continually heard people tell the board and administration to lead by example, so I would like to say that I would like to see everyone who speaks at this mic do the same. The other item I want to repeat, and I say repeat because it has been mentioned numerous times, is that teachers and staff are not giving or assigning the books in question to any students as it is not part of their curriculum. So please stop making the teachers feel like they are being attacked. I know that you say you are not directing this towards them, but I can tell you they feel threatened, as do many students. How do I know this? Because I have heard from teachers and many parents who say their children are afraid that their club, gender, or activity will be next to be attacked. And those are their words, not mine. I know people are upset, but there is a process, as most of you know, and until there is an answer from the review committee, people should try to control their emotions for the good of all the families, staff, and children in the district. As a closing comment, I would like to suggest that the audience stay to hear what happens at school board meetings after public comment, such as the budget and how it's going to affect them, such as policies, which is how the school runs. Policies are always reviewed at school board meetings, and everybody has a chance to comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Clark, I'm from Wyndham. This nice lady said what I was going to say. There was a lot of heckling last week, and I'm hoping that tonight people will be civil to each other on both sides. I'd like to address something that came up right after last week's meeting. A local radio podcast said that there was a hurtful comment made toward a former Wyndham High School student who was at the podium talking about statistics of suicide among trans teens. Apparently it was heard to be muttered under someone's breath, well, maybe you should, in reference to killing themselves. Whatever was said, if it's true, the person that said it should be ashamed. We have stated over and over again that this is about pornography. We are not trying to cancel or go against any group of students. We just want the books that have pornography, that talk about sex acts and incest out of the library. And again, please, let's be civil to each other tonight. Thank you.
I don't know about this. Here it goes. Who would like to speak next?
Kristen Day, Wyndham. I spoke last week about harassment in our schools being widespread, and I want to make it clear that I stand for every student who's harassed. And they are harassed for everything you can imagine. It is true that in 7th grade, my daughter was called a fucking straight and more by other students who were LGBTQ. But the key is not about one demographic or another. The key is that every student's struggle is valid and of equal importance, and none of us can know anyone's burden based on a label. I want to be clear that when this happened, I thought of it as just a mistake by a student. We didn't call the student out, but I did ask why it might have happened. I learned that the civil rights team does encourage students to open conversations with other students about their group topics to spread awareness. I do not believe any group or any individual at school encourages malice, but I do think this experience could show a result of encouraging kids to talk to other kids about these private topics in school. Kids aren't equipped with judgment or training to handle these discussions any more than a teacher is. There's no policy addressing club activity. I believe social labeling results in more harassment and bullying. If kids are left to it, you get the Lord of the Flies. Then no student will be safe. There is a harassment policy, but that doesn't prevent. So at the time, I did notify the principal of the issue, pleading that he address bullying in school for all kids. Some sort of program about tolerance, mix kids in together, so they team build and see each other as equals. Something like what I did when I was in middle school for a program. You know what they finally did? The middle school did run a program, but they had the kids, without parental consent, join up with one of 5 optional focus groups and brought in an expert to run the forums. Boys, girls, students who are Black, Asian, Hispanic, and other ethnic background, students with challenges like ADHD, learning disability, anxiety, depression, etc., and students who live in a home where there sometimes isn't enough money. So the middle school guided kids to essentially label themselves by demographic of choice, in which group the forum leader collected information from the kids to report back to the principal. This is how schools are run now. It isn't about equality and about tolerance. It is about labeling and dividing. It goes way beyond any one program or one book. You know your oppression. Make it a public responsibility, not a private one. Focus on social identity rather than achievement and a strong student body community. My point last week is that all students in humans struggle, and we can't prioritize any one demographic in attention or care, because the result is a social divide that distracts from doing the real work, kids learning and helping every individual in need.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, my name is Ashlyn Cuthbert. I am a leader in the Wyndham Middle School Civil Rights Team. I'm just gonna adjust this. I became aware of last week's meeting Friday of an article that was posted about it. And I'd just kind of like to clear the air a little bit about what we do in civil rights and kind of what our goal is. The goal of our civil rights team, in the middle school at least, is to make our students feel more accepted in their school environment and have their differences that make them special not be ignored. Like Ms. Day said, we encourage opening conversations about these topics because we feel that they aren't talked about enough. And these things, what we call them categories or civil rights categories, when combined, they make a really great community if people just start talking about it and listening to those things more. As in facts and surveys stated in last week's meeting, we do send out surveys every now and again asking students, and these surveys are anonymous, they aren't named, their race, their identified gender, their sexual orientation, and other things that they identify with. We don't ask questions about the exact details of encounters. We just ask how they identify, and we do this because we want to get to know our fellow students and formulate a plan to help best support them. Because why would we spend energy on trying to formulate a plan based on students when those aren't even the students that we need to help? Another thing that I would like to address about last week's meeting were pronoun pins. These were not provided by the Civil Rights team. They were provided by the GSA, the Gender and Sexualities Alliance. They were optional. It was a little table in the main hallway at the beginning of each day for 1 week. They were completely optional. There was no pressure to get one. They were not announced over intercoms or talked about by teachers. We didn't have students roaming the halls offering pins. They were at a table that you could have walked right by. We apologize to any students, parents, or teachers that might have felt uncomfortable by this, or that they are being
Your time
harassed.
is up.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Mary Trombley. I'm a Wyndham resident. I'm a parent of students at the primary, Manchester, and middle schools, and I'm an RSU 14 staff member. I would like to talk tonight about bullying. I've worked in schools for the past 15 years. Bullying and harassment is widely seen as both a serious issue and one that can greatly impact someone's physical and emotional well-being. We can all agree that bullying should not be tolerated. So why is it now suddenly okay in our town? Why is it that adults think it is fine to heckle, intimidate, follow, record, and make wild and slanderous accusations against those who disagree with them? Why is it okay to threaten parents, like me, who think books belong in a library? Very few people who agree with me want to come up here and talk because it is frightening. This is nothing short of bullying and harassment. But to a finer point, it's also thinly veiled bigotry. How else could an adult hearing a young person share that LGBTQ students are more likely to kill themselves then say out loud in a meeting maybe they should? In case you missed it, that did happen at the last meeting. The thing is, being a teacher for the past 15 years has taught me that the kids are always listening. What we do as an adult sets an example. So maybe that explains why the kids in Wyndham Middle School, the kids are being accused of being groomers by their peers if they look different. Maybe that's why the children on an RSU 14 bus have been overheard saying to a gay peer, if my child was gay, I would kill them. That also has happened. Look at the example that is being set. I ask everyone to listen to the message you are sending to your children. The topic of sex in books is not new, just the identities of the main characters. please don't claim to have nothing against LGBTQ students while also using terms like pornographic, obscene, deviant, indecent, predatory, dangerous, and smut to describe stories about their journeys. The kids hear those words too, and it is bullying. Again, all of this is nothing short of harassment. It is now normal for staff members like myself to be afraid to attend school board meetings, for teachers to be doxxed and followed outside of school. Staff members all worry that standing here in support of our most vulnerable students will result in accusations of being sexual predators. Talk about impacting physical and emotional well-being. We are adults and we are afraid. What about the children in the RSU 14 school district who identify as gay, transgender, non-binary, or heck, just different?
Thank you very much.
We can't let the bullies win.
Hi, I'm Crystal Ash Cuthbert. I live here in Wyndham. I have a few points to make tonight. Thinking about my own child, if my daughter checks out any book from either our public library or school library, it's because she's curious, and I encourage that in my home. She might check out a book because she wants to understand her friends and where they're coming from and how they feel, and that's also encouraged in my home. If she wants porn, she's not going to the library. It's right here. And we're not talking about banning cell phones. As a parent of a 14-year-old, I can make decisions for her. There's a policy in place that allows me to exclude my child from reading or checking out any material that I don't believe are appropriate for her. It is inappropriate for me to push for any decision for anyone else's child. Not yours, and surely not yours. It is this same policy that establishes how books are chosen for libraries, curriculum resources, and classrooms. It also outlines the steps that need to be taken to challenge the appropriateness of books. I've read the policy, it is fair, and it is reasonable. It gives all stakeholders a voice at the table. This is not the appropriate place. It is imperative that the RSU 14 School Board continue to follow this well-thought-out policy. You should not be swayed by the mob mentality that has been persuasive in our town the last several months. As a citizen of this town for over 25 years, I believe this vocal group represents a minority, not the majority of how our fellow citizens feel. Number two, and I know that there are a lot of people listening at home, many of them I'm going to address right now. To our librarians, teachers, support staff, our students, fellow citizens and parents who have been the recipients of disrespectful words or actions because of this ban the books movement, please accept my deepest apologies. The venomous, hurtful, appalling emails, social media posts, and public comments are unacceptable. As a society, our ability to disagree respectfully has not been evident in our town as of recent. I encourage all of us to hold each other to a higher standard of behavior than we have shown recently.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I am Kaylee Bosmus. My husband and I are Wyndham residents, and we have 3 children. One in the high school, a 3.5-year-old who attends a Joyful Noise Christian Child Care Center, and a 10-week-old brand new baby. I attended last week's meeting after hearing about the books in question. Upon leaving, it was extremely clear to me that not only did I need to return to this week's meeting, but I needed to speak up and let my voice also be heard. I'll start by saying that my husband and I were not aware of any of these books being placed in the middle school or high school libraries. Had we known ahead of time or been given the option ahead of time, we would have absolutely followed the correct procedures and policies to try to ensure that the said books would not have been placed in the middle school or high school libraries. I'm a woman of God and faith. I'm a woman who believes in right and wrong. I'm a woman who believes in fighting for what is right. And not knowing or having the option to place my opinions or concerns about these books before they were made available to our students is 100% wrong in my book. Regardless of the content, a parent has a right to know what schools are exposing to their children before they do it. With that being said, I would also like it to be known that I do not condone book banning, and I am not asking for these books to be banned. I have absolutely nothing wrong with the LGBTQ community. I love all humans. And on a further note, I would love nothing more than for everyone to come to a common ground, as I wholeheartedly believe that every child needs a safe support system in school. But if they're going through something as serious as an identity crisis or having sexuality confusion, this is something that needs to be very closely monitored and guided by a mature, licensed, non-biased, professional adult who can then make recommendations about certain materials for families to read together if the parents choose. Those materials would still be available for families to obtain because this is not a book banning. You can get it in the public library, you can get it online. And yes, porn is available on phones, but you can also block websites as you do in school, so children can't get onto websites that are not appropriate for them. Again, I do want and believe that children should have support in our school systems, but this is certainly not the way. And as a parent, I'm sitting here telling you, I'm willing to discuss and explore options. I'm not sitting here saying ban books. I'm sitting here saying let's have a discussion and come to a common ground. I'm sitting here telling you I have faith we can do better. We can do better than this bullying, everything everyone is talking about. It can be different. I'm telling you I am and I will continue to show up for our children. So here I am. Thank you.
Good evening. Oh gosh, that's loud, sorry. My name is Samantha Clark. I'm a Wyndham resident of 8.5 years, as well as a self-employed business owner right here in Wyndham. I have 3 boys in the Wyndham schools, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 1 in the primary school. If you know me, you know I'm quite the shy, quiet introvert, but I can't be quiet anymore. I'm so beyond frustrated that it's this difficult to keep sexual explicit books out of the schools. I'm not one to ban books, but I just believe that pre-K through 12 schools are not the place for books like these, as well as books being required to read in their classes. My sister-in-law graduated from Wyndham in 2020, and one of her classes was required to read The Handmaid's Tale. It's a popular book, a popular show, and I'm sure most everyone here is aware of what that book is about. It's very inappropriate for school-aged kids to be reading. There is currently another book being read this year in an English class called The Winter's Bone. Here's a little snippet from this book. Gail, acting as a man, pushed her backwards onto a blanket of pine needles in shade and slipped her tongue deep into Ree's mouth. Ree found herself sucking on the wiggling tongue of the man in her mind, sucking that plunging tongue of the man in her mind until she tasted morning coffee and cigars, and spit leached from between her lips down her chin. There's a lot more gross description, but I just don't feel comfortable reading that aloud. Why are these books like these, there's vulgar language, sexual talk, actions, and our schools being required to read? There's millions of books out there, and I know Wyndham can do better with our book selections. Please don't be pushing such inappropriate things onto our kids. School is to prepare our kids for their future, so please just teach my kids math, proper English, and science. Why not educate them on jobs and managing money and important things they'll need to know how to do when they are finished with high school? Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Doris Meehan. I've been a resident of Wyndham for 52 years this month. I'm here to express that I'm just saddened that the children are being modeled a view of human physical design that is so disrespectful of it. Among the biological functions of the human body, sexuality is the most powerful. Sexual intercourse causes the body to create hormones that affect the mind as well as the body. It also, and this is why it's said to be the most powerful, can create a brand new, separate, and unique being with DNA, fingerprints, and even eyes that are unique from any other human being that has ever lived or any that ever will live again. Sexual activity, when exposed to a human brain that is not ready or willing to participate in it, can also cause irreparable harm that can last a lifetime. Sexual intimacy is far more than a fun recreational activity. It is by design meant to be an intimate, not public expression of love between two people who intend to remain in that love. It even creates the same hormone that bonds a nursing mother to her baby. Ideally, two people who, should a new life be created by their union, will raise that new life in a home where it can experience the vast benefits of an intact family. I'm saddened that these precious and beautiful children are being exposed to sexual knowledge and images for which they are not ready. The images we are encouraging them to see cannot be unseen. The attitude of disrespect gives them a false sense of what human function of sexual intimacy is like. For those parents who want to protect the innocence of their children until they're ready for this knowledge, RSU 14 schools are purposefully removing that parental right. When a student is offered, for example, when a student is offered a more graphic copy of sexual material he has run across by his own admission that makes him a little uncomfortable, it seems to me that that borders on psychological abuse. It's not just a book or two that parents are concerned about, nor is it perhaps the most talked about book happens to be homosexual expression.
Thank you very much.
My name is Ivy Melanie. Allowing sexually explicit materials and placing one protected class over another under the guise of the rainbow is causing tension in the LGBT
Excuse me just a minute. Where are you from?
From here.
From Wyndham?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it is segregating children on how they identify. This is placing students that identify as LGBTQ and those questioning at a higher risk than those who don't identify as such. I am a member of the LGBT community, and I am mortified that these sexually explicit books are what you have chosen to be pushed upon students to reflect what this community is about, and to aid those that may be questioning their sexuality. These books do not represent the LGBT community and are misleading in a potentially unhealthy direction that could have damaging results in many aspects. Pushing pornography books and indoctrinating children in a particular lifestyle while they are still discovering life and who they are is grooming. Having to stand here before you and tell you all this is demoralizing. You are erasing everything my community has fought for. Why are sexually explicit books being pushed about the LGBTQ, and why aren't the same type of books being pushed about heterosexuals? What do you even have in comparison? Please explain what educational value these types of books hold as to why it is so important for you to defend or want in our schools. Children deserve to just be kids, and your focus needs to be prioritized on their core academics, which test scores prove that. Did you even take into consideration that exposure to sexually explicit materials may lead a child to normalize and become desensitized to high-risk behaviors, shaping a child's expectation in relationships, blurring boundaries and increasing a child's risk of victimization? For children without an understanding of healthy sexuality, exposure to pornographic materials, especially violent porn, incest, rape, can be traumatic. Asking people how they sexually identify, what their pronouns are, providing references, and displaying sexually explicit materials can and is harassment, sexual harassment, if it is offensive to one. creating safe spaces, displaying flags, posters, etc. that only identified LGBTQ students and excluding students who don't identify as such is discriminatory and exclusive. Your inclusive and equity policies and materials are placing one protected class over another, is excluding protected classes, which is a direct violation of the Maine Human Rights Act, which we are all equal under the law. Implementing policies and procedures that exclude a child's parents or legal guardians and persuading students to keep secrets from them is an overreach of both their rights. I advise you to read the Protection of Pupil Rights in FERPA that is found on the U.S. Department of Education government's website. Your decision impacts the health and well-being of students, which can cause irreparable damage to their academic futures. As board members, your job is to remain non-biased to ensure that all students' rights are being equally protected. Calling people anti-gay, anti-trans for expressing concern reflects poorly upon our schools' morals in an unprofessional, inappropriate manner and sends a message that your biased opinions won't ensure equity for everyone. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Kylie Morell, and I have 2 children in the Windham school system, one at Windham Primary and one at Windham Middle School. We moved to Windham in October of last year from Caribou, Maine, where I had become an active speaker at school board meetings during COVID. COVID opened my eyes to many issues and areas of my life and my children's lives for which I had become complacent. I assumed that by sending my children to public school, which in Caribou was composed of many of the same teachers who taught both my husband and I, that our children would receive the same quality education. I now see that that could not have been farther from the truth. Our education system has become a joke. I see kids dressed in PJs to attend school, librarians handing out porn to minors, and teachers pretending to be medical professionals. As educators and elected school board members, many of you have become more focused on masks, vaccines, gender identity, and sexual orientation than education. And all those things have one thing in common. They have segregated us as a society. Masks versus no masks, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and reality versus fantasy, and has made our differences more exaggerated, which in turn has caused more division than inclusion. I want to make my stance abundantly clear. Gay pride flags, gender identity posters, and pornographic books have no place in the school. I was told by an administrator at Windham Middle School that these flags make people feel included and give them a sense of belonging. This is a completely false statement because my 13-year-old son feels the opposite, and frankly, I feel the same way. I see the great gay pride flag as a symbol of hate and division. The same businesses displaying gay pride flags, stating all are welcome, all are included, be nice and be kind, are the same businesses that not too long ago had signs saying no mask, no entry, no vaccine, no entry. They even wished harm upon the unvaccinated. So am I included, and am I really welcome, or do I have to meet certain criteria for me to be accepted? Do you see, by focusing so hard on making one class of people feel like they belong, you are segregating a whole nother class of people? So no, the gay pride flag does not make me or my children feel included, and I request its immediate removal from all classrooms. And please do not insult my intelligence with process jargon, as this does not require a process, just a ladder. A person can change their location, alter their appearance, and make every attempt to change their gender, but one thing remains the same. You are still you. Without addressing the root of the issue, whether it be bullying, negative self-talk, or just growing pains in general, nothing is going to change. You cannot outrun the person inside, and 100% acceptance and inclusion is an unrealistic benchmark. Kids need goals and things to look forward to when they wake up in the morning. They need an education that gives them purpose and smart goals they can achieve. We have veered so far from this path, and enough is enough.
Cindy Harris, I live in Windham. I just wanted to piggyback, that was a great segue into this poster that is posted all over the Wyndham High School and in all students' faces. And I'm going to read it in case parents don't know this is posted everywhere in the school. It says, "This is a safe and inclusive space for lesbians, gay, bisexual, and transgender students." Where's heterosexuals? Yeah. This is not all-inclusive. This is offensive to heterosexuals. And isn't the school liable for all students to be safe? Not just gender specific. So these need to be taken down, because again, you're dividing students, you're building a wall. You're building a wall that's getting so big, you're not going to be able to take down. So I urge you to take it down.
Anybody else?
My name is Nicole Varney and I'm from Wyndham. We can all see that passion is one thing that either side is not lacking when speaking at this podium. However, with that passion comes a lot of emotion, and sometimes coming from an emotional standpoint can cause the lines of logic to blur. We are not here to talk about feelings, we are here to fix a broken system. To me, being here tonight is more than the removal of 2 books from our school libraries. We need to draw the lines between what's allowed and what is not allowed in our schools and have fairness across the board for our children and students. I came to last week's school board meeting specifically for the fact I do not believe children should have access to literature with sexually explicit images or content. But listening to the public comment, I was informed about a few other topics that really bothered me, and these topics were confirmed to me by the students who attend our school system. I understand that we can't please everyone, and there's going to be uncomfortable moments in conversation in schools, but there needs to be lines drawn from what is right and wrong. And currently, we have very fuzzy lines for what is allowed in our schools, and it is not fair for the students or parents. We as parents and community members can't and won't back down on protecting our children. This fight is going to be repetitive and tiresome, but nothing's going to change unless we make change happen by standing together and removing all the unnecessary garbage from our schools. I am here tonight to tell you I'm going to continue coming to every school board meeting. I'm going to continue to fight for my children, and I'm going to continue to spread truth about what's happening inside our schools, unlike the school system and local media. The removal of the books in the library is just the tip of the iceberg. There is an agenda being pushed, and it is affecting our children. You school board members and Superintendent Howell are just puppets on a string doing what you were told. You were elected to represent the community's voice in public education and to set the standard of education in our schools. You are failing at both those roles. Until you can find your conscience and make the changes that are necessary in the best interest of our children's education and safety, I can assure you that we are not going to back down.
Hi, my name's Scott. I'm from Wyndham.
Scott, your last name, please.
McDonald.
Thank you.
Yeah, my 3-minute starts now, correct?
It sure does.
Yeah. I just want to say that this wasn't an oversight. This isn't, a mistake. This is what Wyndham has to offer our students now. When I see the contempt on your faces for some of the parents, it's incredible to me. The only thing anybody can do, get your kid out of there. We need to have school choice where we can, our money, our tax money that goes to each kid follows that kid to a school that we would have our kids at. Until then, you guys got to get your kids out of there. They're only going to... You got to do whatever you can do to get your kids out of there. They're not safe. This is on purpose. They are being separated. They're being pushed against each other, race-wise, sexuality-wise, everything else. I spoke last week. I think I made it very clear. It had nothing to do with any orientation or anything else. I don't want my kids watching straight porn or any other kind of porn. That's reading it. This is acceptable to this school. I want you people to realize this. Get your kids out of there as quick as you can, and let's make a difference so we can bring them back in. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, Ken Clark, Wyndham, and I just want to follow up on that because porn is illegal, folks, and it's illegal for a reason. And I'm just curious on the board, by a show of hands, how many people up there are going to show my daughter sexually explicit material without me knowing it? Any of you? And we can confess right now if we're gonna. Okay, so if you're not, then how come you're condoning it in the library? You're putting it in there. You folks are the kingpins. You actually distribute it to others to hand to our children. You're condoning it. If you did that across the street, you'd be arrested. So, the responsibility of selection of materials. The superintendent, in consultation with administrators and professional staff, is responsible for selecting instructional materials and library media materials to implement the learning results in support of the curriculum. You're teaching our kids pornography. That's what it comes down to. And you're willingly doing it. And that's sad. What's really sad is one of the laws that you're working your way around is that we've researched that because it's a cartoon and supposedly educational, that makes it okay to do in the school. Think about it. You're doing it because of a cartoon. I know of a cigarette company called Camel that marketed their cigarettes the same way to addict kids. So again, you're using cartoons and proud of it apparently, that you found a way to do this and get this into our school system. Vape companies also use bubblegum flavors to get kids attracted to nicotine. You're using cartoons to get kids to watch porn, and you're doing it and you're skirting the laws and you're actually proud of it. It's sad. How are you going to bring the school back to an institution of high academics, strong morals and ethics and integrity? And again, we hear that division, this group, that group. If everyone remembers Michael Jordan's famous marketing thing, it's got to be the shoes, this has got to be the porn. That's what we're talking about. People have the right to live their life the way they want. I talked to gay people today. I know a lot of them. It's fine. I've got to know some beautiful people back there, Ivy. And you're just causing division. And it's about the porn. It's illegal, it's wrong, and it's harmful. It's graphic nature. It's gross. And is that it? Oh. And I just can't believe it's going on. And I go on that, but I really did not want to bring up another subject, which has come to fruition just recently, is that males are allowed in the female bathrooms in the high school and the middle school. Please think about that. That means that my daughter can be in the bathroom and a boy can come in with a penis, expose himself in the bathroom. So now that to me is like real life. Hey, we got real-time sexuality going on here. Fantastic. You're condoning that as well. And you're using the same laws, a whole nother bunch of fact sheet on U.S. Department of Educational Policy, transgender students. This says, schools covered by the policy that get federal funding. A school receives federal funding if it gets federal grants contracts. So as long as you do these things, you continue to get federal funding. One of them is restrooms and locker rooms. The guidance makes clear that students have the right to use restrooms and locker rooms that match their gender identity.
CJ?
Courtney Edwards, Wyndham, Maine. Title V, Chapter 337, Part 4592, Unlawful Public Accommodations. The same laws that require schools to accommodate the trans community are indeed the same laws that also should be protecting heterosexuals. Both are protected classes under the discrimination laws and the Maine Human Rights Act. RSU 14 is in fact placing children in unhealthy and potentially dangerous situations. Your district chose to adopt and allow this to happen because the policy is tied to receiving federal funding. Your district isn't even monitoring the students that one day decide to be a male or vice versa a female entering the opposite gender's bathrooms. This is very concerning, and I suggest you stop this predatory issue now before you have a situation that involves an extremely large lawsuit on your hands. While scanning through your policies, I came across non-discriminational, equal opportunity, and affirmative actions. Well, it's pretty clear that the district only protects one group of people and not the heterosexuals. Now, why are you even allowing this? And why aren't these bathrooms being monitored to make sure that safety is the #1 priority? We're all aware what happened in Loudoun County when a 15-year-old boy raped his female classmate inside a trans-friendly female bathroom and assaulted a second after switching schools. That superintendent has been fired for his handling of the matter. Again, this school is placing students in unhealthy and potentially dangerous situations. My suggestion would be to stop this now before it's too late. You are playing a wild game of Russian roulette. You have already crossed the line with your so-called educational cartoon porn, and if you're that hard up to receive federal funding to allow this type of content and allow this type of stuff to be happening within our schools, I can't help but think what the next thing will be offered to you guys for then you just to get a little extra money.
Hi, I'm Tom Boatman. I live here in Windham. I think probably a lot of us have cell phones for our kids, and I think probably a lot of us have internet at home that we're paying for our kids. And to all the parents who want to claim that books in the library are the source of dirty pictures for their children, I would ask the question, do you have internet in your home? Do you pay for it? Do you pay for cell phones for your kids? Because if there is a child who wants to find dirty pictures, they're going to find them in 2.6 seconds on the internet on their phone that's in their pocket. They're not going to go to the school library looking for pornography. That is just not going to happen. Kids don't do that. The other thing that I wanted to say was that trying to ban certain books from school libraries, trying to decide what should be available in those libraries, you claim that you're acting to protect the children without considering the harm that you can inflict on kids like my son and like a lot of other sons and daughters that are trans, are bi, are gay, who hear this as an attack on them personally. Sending the message that queer and trans subjects are unfit for children, many of whom are struggling with gender identity, can alienate these kids and subject them to bullying and discrimination by their peers. And I just want to ask, if we're going to regress to a time when books are publicly burned and banned, a time when gay bashing was a high school norm, I don't want our state to emulate states like Tennessee. I don't want our town to emulate places where these children are forced to the outside of society and told that they are wrong and should not exist. And that's the kind of message that's being sent tonight. Thank you.
Hello, I am DJ from Jordan Small Middle School, and it's ridiculous that these books are allowed at schools. Those books are inappropriate for people and kids at schools. And to learn about this inappropriate stuff they should be learning it by their parents, not by some stupid books. It's not the book's job, it's the student. It's the parent's job.
Kurt Jorgensen from Windham. I just want to bring to your attention that the Maine State Legislature, Title 17A, Maine Criminal Code, specifically talks about possession of sexually explicit material. Intentionally or knowing transporting, exhibiting, purchasing, possessing access to view any book, magazine, newspaper, print, negative, slide, motion picture, computer data file, etc., for anyone who is under 16 is considered a felony. So you guys are personally giving out books to children and committing a crime. It doesn't have anything to do with LGBTQ, doesn't have anything to do with being straight or anything like that. You are giving books that have images that are sexually inappropriate. This is an age thing. If you look at Amazon, you look up this specific book, it says you have to be 18 or older to view it. So I think what you guys need is some sort of stopgap. This microphone's crazy. You need some sort of stopgap to be able to say, hey, look, if I'm a student, I come in and I want to take out the book, you have to ask that student, did you get permission from your parents because you're not 16, you're not 18, you're 12? My son, who recently read a book, who's 12, in the middle school, a book that your school gave to him, felt uncomfortable about some of the language in the book, and he came to me and told me afterwards. When I talked to the principal about these books, including some of the ones we're talking about tonight, I was told that I have to come and talk to you guys about it. I don't know what these books are. You need to provide me a list of what's going in the curriculum for these students. I'd be more than happy to say, yeah, I don't want them to read that book. It's fine if other people want to take it out, but I don't. I think I should be able to have that right, just like I can control what my son can look on his phone. It shouldn't be a free-for-all. I shouldn't be able to have my son come home one day and say, hey, Dad, look what book I found. You guys have the ability to be able to stop that, still have the freedom of speech, still have the ability for everyone to look at these books if they're age appropriate. This is the theme. It's not the topic, it's age appropriate. I don't want my son to open up a book that has a picture of somebody giving a blowjob, whether it's a cartoon or an actual image. It states in the law in the state of Maine that you can't do that, and it's a felony. So take that and put it in your books.
Hi, my name is Lynn Butterfield. I'm a Raymond resident. That was my 12-year-old that just spoke. I'm not sure if anyone is aware, but the human brain does not reach full maturity until the age of 25. So making these books available to kids does nothing but confuse them. There should be a qualified counselor and/or teacher that kids can go to if they have questions if they can't go to their parents. These books should not be available for young students. I feel like the person who should have looked over the contents of these books before they were added to the library should be questioning themselves as to whether they should even have a job at this point. Passing the buck on to someone else is unacceptable. The agenda being forced on 80% of the students is unacceptable and needs to stop. School is for learning reading, writing, math, life skills, etc. Unfortunately, these are not being taught. My son, who is in 6th grade, is reading at a 4th grade level, and he is in a 5th grade math. During the pandemic, when we were all homeschooling our kids, I jumped him 2 grade levels in reading alone. That should tell you something. I'm not a teacher. So, since your assessment levels are extremely low, you would think you would be pushing that instead of the agenda that you're pushing now. Question, which I know won't be answered, but how many kids should be enrolled in a public school for them to stay open? What would happen if 75% of the student population within the school district did not enroll next year? I would think you would have to close the schools down, which would make a lot of unemployed staff. Thank you.
I'm Danny Davis. I'm from Wyndham, and I'm not sure what else we have to say to get it through that this goes beyond the porn books in the library, and also that we're following a policy created by the board, not book banning. All right. I wasn't really prepared with the speech tonight. I'm just kind of like tired of all of this. This has been a long time. We've all put our heart and souls into this. We spend a lot of time on this, and it's not just the speaking. It's not just, we read policies, we read laws, we talk to doctors, we talk to lawyers, we talk to Chris, we talk to the whole school board. We email a lot. Like, we are all emailing all day long. Very close by now. Probably sick of us, I'm sure. But I would love to see an inkling of effort from the district, from the superintendent, from the board, effort that shows you're willing to work together. Some of us parents, we're concerned about what's happening in our schools. We're all educated individuals with very fine-tuned skills and abilities to be able to achieve a goal. We could be of help, but the lack of willing to work with us and instead try to silence us and shut us down and make false accusations is concerning and doesn't lead us to believe that you want what's best for our kids. Kids should be above all, above power, above money, above reputation, above backlash. I have no doubt that most of us, school, parents, community, really do want what's best for our kids, and we need to work together on this because we all know it's coming from above. It's coming from beyond the district, coming from beyond the MDOE, and we need to work together to stop this all. First, it's the books hidden in the library, it's counselors going into our classrooms, it's SEL being in the curriculum. Probably sounds crazy that I'm mentioning this stuff. More to come later on down the line. After the community involvement and input, it's clear the majority does not want this type of material in the schools or libraries or being implemented into the curriculum, SEL. We have policies that were created by the school board, and they need to be revised. And it's not just the book selection. Listen to us now. Let's come together. Let's make better things for this school, better things for you, better things for your kids, my kids, all our kids. We need to get back on track.
Hello, my name is Scott McDonald, 17 Wyndham. Do you hear all these parents that care about their kids? And you just heard an 11 and a 12-year-old in the last 3 weeks explaining what these books are and how bad they are, rude, disrespectful, and inappropriate. You need to get these out of the schools because, one, these parents care about their kids, and the second ones that supposedly care about their kids can leave it at their house. There's a time and a place, and I'm 17, and then I'll be the third kid in the last 3 weeks, and I am sick and tired of it. And I don't want anybody from K through 12, 6 through 18, learning these books. It's not appropriate. It should not be allowed, period. And it's about time you guys step your game up and actually learn how to care for these parents and everybody who accepts everybody for who they are. And I mean, it's really sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of how just blow it all. We'll blow it all by. But these books are here forever in these kids' minds if they read them. And do not, and they, pay attention, but you don't have to write an essay about them. You should be actually, freshman year, you should be writing essays about what you have to really do. Sorry about that. And it's really, really antagonizing when, you don't know how to write a proper essay. You're gonna fail your class because because it's bullcrap. And obviously the last 4 years I went to Wyndham schools, it turned into a joke. I was homeschooled most of my life, and then the next year and this year, and I'm serious. All these parents need to listen to what their kids are saying, and if it's not appropriate for schools, get them out.
Hello, I'm Stephen Napolitano from Wyndham. Our public school system is broken. Homeschooling is exploding in the district. Good teachers are quitting for being forced to teach social emotional learning and forced to support sexual explicit content with minors. Biological boys are now allowed in the girls' US 14 bathrooms. The Nick and Charlie book, overwhelming graphic sex acts, some of the excerpts. We should get drunk, stealing parents' wine, drinking vodka lemonade. I want a drunk hookup in the bathroom later. I quickly discover drunk issues are not fun when one person is sober. It doesn't take a lot to get me drunk, which is extremely useful for situations like this where year 13s are everywhere. Have sex in pillow forts. Gotta bang as many people as you can. The words cock and dick are used multiple times. The F word 21 times. The S word 12 times. What type of education are we paying for here? What is happening in the Wyndham Middle School? Are we proud of this? The solution is very simple. It's already in the public library. There's easy access. There's a path from our campus over there. They have wonderful employees over there that are willing to help. There's all kinds of books there for people to identify. And the parents are connected to the accounts. There's the difference. Okay, that's the bigger picture than the books. Here, the parents are excluded. Over there, the parents have the option to be part of working with the public library. These are our children. These are teacher students. So please focus on academics, arts, music, and sports. A year ago tomorrow is when the book challenge policy, the IJJ, was adopted, and Mr. Howell had sold the school board on it. You can go back and watch that video. Why was that needed back then? Were we having all kinds of parents complaining about books? I don't think so, but Mr. Howell knew why. Mr. Howell is part of the Sebago Alliance group where the superintendents around the surrounding towns, all school districts, talk to each other, and he was well aware of what was going on with Bonnie Eagle and some other towns. So I'm going to say this. We will not stop attending. We will not stop FOAs. We will not stop the book challenges until we restore the academic integrity and the personal safety of our school. Thank you.
My name is Scott Mealy. I was born and raised in Windham. I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are in the Windham school system. I was at the school board meeting last week when many parents were voicing their opinion about the book Gender Queer. I didn't speak last week because I didn't have anything written down, and I wanted to make sure that my thoughts were clearly conveyed. First, I want to address the book. It is obviously inappropriate. It is difficult for me to comprehend how adults who are responsible for the care of children could allow something this sexually graphic into the school. Some people at the meeting last week tried to defend these kinds of books by saying that gender-confused kids need resources like this. I'm here to tell you, no, they don't. No child needs a resource telling them about wearing a strap-on, or performing oral sex, or tasting their own vaginal fluids. No child needs this. My question to the board is, where is the line? If this book does not cross the line for what is considered wrong and inappropriate for school children, what does cross the line? What if the book was called Straight Girl and it showed a girl performing oral sex on someone? Would that be crossing the line? Of course it would, and everyone, including all of you on the board, would agree that that is crossing the line. But because the book is focused on talking about gender ideology and LGBT issues, suddenly it's not only acceptable, but a necessary resource for these kids. What if a man wanted to come to the school and talk to students about their sex lives and what makes them aroused? We would all be rightly horrified, and none of you would have a problem condemning such a disgusting behavior. Now, what if it was a trans woman talking to students about their sex lives and what makes them aroused? Would you have the same horrified disgust? For some reason, when anything is done in the name of gender or LGBT rights, it is seemingly untouchable. There is nothing that crosses the line. If you don't put a stop to stuff like this, it is only going to get worse and more graphic and more harmful for kids. Yes, there is a slippery slope, but the problem is we have already fallen off the cliff. We are giving pornographic materials to minors. We are way past the slope. The problem you face is the next time something like this happens and you know it's wrong, you won't have a leg to stand on because you have already given in. It's a runaway train that can't be stopped. If you can take a stand now, it will make it much easier to stop stuff like this in the future. The gender movement has made huge waves in our culture and is obviously seeped into the schools. I'm just begging you for some common sense. Be the adults in the room, and remember that sometimes the adults have to say no. Thank you.
Jennifer Cushman, Raymond, Maine. I have a daughter who's a senior at the high school here. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts from the Journal of Psychiatry from December 7th, 2021. Early exposure to pornography, a form of sexual trauma. Many years ago, a young father in his 20s was getting in trouble with the law because of repeated inappropriate exposure in his genitals in the public. He also had explosive outbursts with destruction of property. During the first sessions with him, I was struck by his juvenile, almost childlike expression with incongruent affective regarding his behavior, probably stemming from a lack of insight. His poor ability to deal with the frustration to regulate the anger and impulses indicated some form of developmental arrest. Months and another child later, after gradually investigating his past and trying to understand what had led to his dysregulated sexuality, he eventually disclosed that when he was a child, his dad made him watch pornography. It was disturbing to try to imagine the effect of potentially overwhelming, arousing, but also degrading images on a forming, innocent brain. Unlike erotic scenes in a movie or nude sculptures in a museum, pornography generally involves power, dynamic humiliation, and a dissertation of the reality around the body and sexuality. In my opinion, it is a form of sexual trauma, just like witnessing a car accident or a parental domestic abuse can be traumatic for the observer. Exposing children to pornography should be forbidden and better regulated, as it is violating their spiritual boundaries and evolving beliefs around sexual development and intimate relationships in a similar way that is very direct abuse on their bodies. If this trauma is not identified and processed promptly, the survivor runs the risk of reenacting as an attempt to resolve what once left him or her powerless, or even engaging in similar criminal behaviors. Or one may trivialize that what is considered sacred by many, hence squandering delicate soul facets of oneself, engaging in promiscuous high-risk sexual activities. American Bar Association points out how pornography harms children, normalizes sexual harm, promotes aggression towards women, shapes negative attitudes and behaviors towards women, affects healthy, intimate relationships, can lead to addiction. And now, what are the lawyers going to do? Be aware that exposure to pornography is a possibility. Let this be said, the greatest commandment is to love. What is the definition of love? An intense feeling for deep affection. What does love do? When you love something or someone, you desire to protect it, nurture it, and watch it grow into a healthy, strong, that is true for humanity, or plants, both living things created by a creator, to reproduce healthier, stronger, after their own kind. My charge to you would be this: school board, proceed with strong caution as to the influence you've been given for these little ones. Parents, continue to show up for your children. They're ultimately your priority, not the schools.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Hi, Jen Moore, Raymond. This is an awful lot of hoopla about 2 books that we heard last week have been taken out twice, right? So this is not, these aren't books that are widely distributed by any means. First of all, thanks to the board, teachers, librarians who have been on the receiving end of a lot of unnecessary negativity. I listened to the meeting last week and I truly tried to listen to understand both sides. It was challenging. I was just disheartened to hear how polarized our community has become. And if we're being honest here, nobody would have even heard of genderqueer if it hadn't been part of the Republican Party agenda. And you might remember the reason we're tying it to LGBTQ is because it all came out when the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida was brought forth. To couch your concerns around porno feels like an obvious tactic to me, as it was made clear by the way the audience heckled anyone that spoke up for the LGBTQ community last week. And to heckle a kiddo who was brave enough to speak up is obscene. I thought we had common ground around a love for kids until I heard that. And this is not porn for good. It is a comic strip. We've seen a lot worse, and we heard someone last week nicely articulate all the literature, the Bible, other books that are just as racy. So, where do you draw the line? This isn't Russia, China, North Korea. We are the USA. Where we have freedoms. That's what the country was built upon, our freedoms. Freedom to get information at the public library or on the internet. And where could you draw this line? There's racy, you call this comic strip porno, I believe, because it doesn't depict a heterosexual relationship. And what are you so afraid of? How can it possibly concern you if others identify as non-binary or gay, and thinking that a book or a teacher can indoctrinate a kid is ludicrous? What kid would sign up for the hate and intolerance that they have to endure? You claim you don't have an issue, that materials just don't belong in the schools. You speak about parents' rights to be involved. You can opt out of materials now based on current policy. So why take this option away from the entire community? Again, it's clear the issue is not really around that. It's about fear and hate, not your right to parent, which still exists. You have this. You talk about saving the children, but denying them access to materials that they can perhaps see themselves in promotes isolation, as we heard. And religion, really? Why not read passages that talk about incest or rape out of the Bible, pillaging of communities? What happened? I was raised Christian. What happened to red, yellow, black, and white? We are all precious in God's sight. Not this group, not that group. It's everybody. And much like a lot of people didn't understand why Black Lives Matter, they mattered because they were being ignored, and that's what's happening with LGBTQ, and that's why you're hearing the focus. It's not that we don't love all the kids, but it's a group that's underrepresented. Thank you.
Hi, Hi, my name's Jennifer White, and I own a Joyful Noise Christian Daycare and Learning Center here in town. I have a question. How do you opt out when these books are sitting on a library shelf? You can opt out when they're in a classroom, when they're on your curriculum list, but when they're sitting on a shelf and your child goes into that library in the school, there's no opting out. So let's get real here. And I also have another question. Why do taxpayers have to be forced to homeschool their kids? That's a shame. That is unacceptable to me. If you pay taxes, you should be able to send your child to school, and you should have confidence in the parent-teacher relationships, in the school board, in the principal, and in the superintendent. And what I'm hearing here is that we have double standards going on. We can treat some particular kids a certain way and other particular kids and families a different way. It doesn't work that way. Everybody should be treated the same. And you're hearing parents coming up here time and time again, and they have issues with the books that are being on the library shelves. What is the school board going to do about that? How many more weeks, months, years is it going to take before action is taken? And let me just say, as a licensed provider, if I had any of that material, I would have charges brought against me. DHHS would be involved, and I would have criminal charges brought against me. We are mandated to report, and so is every single person that works in a public school department. This is considered pornography. And let me just tell you what else. You guys followed the CDC requirements? Well, have you checked out what the CDC has to say about child sexual abuse? Let me just read it. Child sexual abuse refers to the involvement of a child, a person less than 18 years old, in sexual activity. And it goes on to say, basically, about 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 13 boys in the United States experience child sexual abuse. And it goes on also to say that showing pornography is considered child sexual abuse. That's from the CDC, okay? When you have children that have been sexually abused, this triggers them. You give them materials and they're not prepared for it, it's traumatizing. Are we looking at that? I'm sure some of you have been through it. Unfortunately, statistically, some of you sitting on the school board probably have. Please consider that.
Karsa Karen from Wyndham. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight. I spoke last week. We are all here for our children. We're all concerned about what is happening in the school system and the garbage that you're introducing. Our minor children, 17, 18, underage children, and this is what they're getting from school. It's inappropriate. You're taking away parents' rights and choices to what they're being exposed to. When is it going to end? It's our right to teach this stuff to our children if we so choose, not the school system. The school system is here to teach reading, writing, math, science, life skills. Get it together and do your job and let the parents parent. And why is it that it's going to take 4 months for you to read this book and then come to a vote? School's going to be over. It's going to carry into next year. We want answers. We want parents' choice, parents' rights. These are our children, not yours.
Good evening. I'm Justin Wynot, a lifelong resident of Wyndham. My mother taught in this school system for 40 years. My grandfather also taught in Wyndham for a number of years. I attended Wyndham schools, and I also had 2 children attend Wyndham, both of which RSU 14 failed. The Wyndham school system used to be one of the best school systems in Maine, and yet here we are, a porn-pushing national disgrace of the educational system. This district has become entrenched with communist, socialist, and Marxist bad actors trying to destroy our families and our community. The Marxist and communist agenda clearly states that pushing porn upon the people will help ensue their agenda. RSU 14 has been pushing this disgusting and harmful content on innocent children for many years. It has been destroying the mental health and well-being of countless students. Thankfully, my oldest has graduated, and I've been homeschooling my youngest child for the last 2 years, since my wife and I noticed the communist, socialist, and Marxist curriculum indoctrinating our first grader. Because of the atrocious policies enacted by this board, our son was falling behind. But after 1 year of homeschooling, he tested at a 99 percentile in math and social studies. Until this school district is completely overhauled and becomes focused on educating our children, I implore everyone in this district, before it is too late, pull your children from RSU 14. Thank you, and may God have mercy on your soul.
My name is Ken Anderson. I'm from Wyndham. No man or governing authority, whether it be town officials, state officials, the President of the United States, the Chief of Police, or the dog catcher, is going to tell me that the pornographic material being distributed in public education or any material like it is a benefit to help shape and promote healthy-minded individuals. And unless we remove this trash from our lives, we will never have a wholesome, loving society that seeks to foster the betterment of ourselves or those around us. We do not need to hold a license to use sound reasoning as to why this can and does affect our culture in neurological, psychological, and physiological terms, and leads only to the detriment of humanity. Most marriages are undone because of deep problems with underlying immoral behavior, which is usually sexual in nature and cloaked over by shame. This is a communicable disease, and when left untreated, develops into a virus that spreads into the heart of homes and neighborhoods and is crippling our nation. If you do not have a problem with this in your life and you are aware of someone who does, and you don't help that person, then you are culpable for their transgression, and God will judge you harshly. And here's a thought. When people allow this into their lives, it weakens the mind to a point of subjection to it, furthering that person to a position of dependence on it. Since we all can associate ourselves with being dependent on something, then you get what I'm talking about. Once the mind is fixed on this appetite of delusional thinking, and you will do anything to get it. In fact, the viewing of this is an accelerant for rapes, murders, and malice of forethought. This kind of illicit material turns to destructive behavior for the individual, and eventually, if not dealt with, will soon bring that person to a place of utter moral decay. Quite often turns to substance abuse, and anger and despair sets in, and for some, the taking of the life God has given them. I mean, just think of why prisons are full. Look at the problems it has caused in the papacy. It tears the soul apart and causes degradation to all of society. And in fact, I would argue that it is the reason for the collapse of the Roman Empire. It brings war into the institution of families. It weakens the marriage bed and crushes the human spirit. If you want to be kind, like all the signs that are displayed on the lawns depict, then get rid of whatever is robbing you of joy. And here's the thing about joy. You can't earn it. It is given to you by God by having a pure mind, which leads to a pure heart, which promotes a people who tell the truth, and the truth is love. Thank you, Jesus.
Hi, my name is Julie Clifford, and I did speak last week. Standing up here is so nerve-wracking. Like, you just don't really know if your words are going to be misinterpreted or misconstrued, and so it's super vulnerable for everybody to get up here, and I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that I have friends sitting right here. I also have friends sitting over there. And I'm sitting in the middle of all of this. Why? Because I agree that if we are truly talking about these books, these 2 books in question are not age appropriate. I also agree that books in schools need to be inclusive of all genders and sexual preferences. It's okay to be an ally of the LGBTQ community, but also agree that these books are not age appropriate. And I know that because that's how I feel. I want to address a comment that someone made last week about a non-binary transgender student killing themselves. I personally and publicly need to apologize to that person for not standing up for them in that moment. I don't even know if they're here tonight, but I personally did hear the comment, and I feel so awful about not turning around and protecting a human life, because that's why we're all here right now, is to protect human life. We are all human. We need to come together to be an example to our children of kindness, empathy, respectful communication, and love. And so to the board, I ask that you remove these books due to the age-inappropriate images and content in them. And I wasn't sure I was going to share this until I forgot her name, but the director of Joyful Noise shared this, that I am a victim of sexual abuse. And when I was 9 years old, if I had picked up this book or a friend had showed me this book, I would have been incredibly triggered. And so I just ask that you take people like me into consideration that don't have that choice or have friends that might share those things. As an adult, I read this book and I wasn't triggered, but I am triggered by things still. I don't watch certain TV shows. I wouldn't read certain books. Ask my husband. And so I would just say, like, let's just remove the book for the sake of the kids. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Beth Taylor Dorr, and I am the only one here, I think, that's not from Windham. I live in Gorham. However, my son graduated from Windham High School with Kate's son, Andy, in 2010. His name is Jackson Taylor. I am really moved by what's happening in our community. I want to share with you my memory of the Windham Eagles. When my son was getting ready to go into his sophomore year of high school, his father was diagnosed with ALS. My husband, my late husband. This community banded together, and Kate can attest to this, and they surrounded my son with love and support, and my family. And many of you know that he was the quarterback of the state champion football team back in 2009. It was a very special time. Those boys, I still remember most of their names. I looked up pictures of it yesterday. I'm so sad to see the division that's happened because I know the love in this community. Jackson was even invited to be the speaker at your 2022 commencement exercises last year. He's a special boy. I have such love for this community, even though I live in Gorham now. And because of that love that I have, it's very hard because I, like the lady over here spoke, was brought up with red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in His sight. I absolutely believe that. I don't care what gender a child is. I don't care about any of that. However, these books and some of the things that are happening, it's so far beyond reading and writing and science. I just don't understand how these books, that I feel devalue children. They're devaluing trans children, gay children, lesbian children. I implore you, as someone who loves the Windham Eagles more than you'll ever know, please, please remove any of the teaching or that goes along with this. Support the kids, absolutely. This isn't about banning. This is about removing something and making it because it's not age appropriate. There is no doubt in my mind that this is pornography. I can't get those images of some of those books out of my mind, and I can't stand the thought of a young child or someone that's been sexually abused looking at that and having it be a trigger to them.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Somebody coming down? Here she comes.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I'm a senior at Wyndham High School. This will be about my 10th year at the school, and I just wanted to say a couple things. My first thing is just really quick about the bathrooms. Trans people probably, okay, hold on, let me just read off what I wrote, sorry. So this stuff doesn't happen in the bathrooms. Most people, including myself and my trans friends, use the single-person bathrooms anyway. That's more about the vaping and the kids skipping class problem than all that. If somebody wants to drop their pants in a bathroom, a rule about trans students isn't going to stop them because I doubt they care about the rule. That kind of stuff is only going to tell the queer community that we are unsupported. The other thing I would like to point out that, yes, this is an attack on the queer community, and I know that because of the books I've had to read for my English class. 1,000 Splendid Suns I had to read my summer before freshman year, and that has like marital, sexual violence. It was horrible, it was terrifying. The Great Gatsby talks about drinking and talks about sex. Siddhartha had a scene with a man kissing a woman's breasts. The Things They Carried has extreme gore. Like, all of these books are part of my English curriculum, and all the points being made about porn and inappropriate material are very valid, but why is every book that we are talking about queer? I encourage everybody to recognize that this is an attack on the queer community, even if it's accidental and unintentional. To remove these books is to tell the queer community that we are not supported by our own town, and it's going to validate all of the anti-LGBTQ+ bullying and make the lives of me and my friends incredibly harder than how hard students have it now with just a book on the shelf that they don't even have to read. The other thing that I would like to bring up is the fact that we do need to make the school a safe place for LGBTQ+ people, because I have friends who feel so unsafe at home because of their LGBTQ+ identity that they have a go bag under their bed. Can we at least make them feel at home at school when they don't feel at home at home? Doing this kind of stuff literally brings down suicide rates. I'm not kidding. I have some friends, and I know for a fact that the reason their self-harm isn't worse is because they know school is a place where they can come and be themselves. Please just don't attack the queer community. Let's keep our school a safe place for me and my friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frank Emery. I'm from Raymond. We don't presently have kids in the school district. We had 2 that we took out after 6th grades because of bullying, and we wound up putting them in private schools and homeschooled. But we don't have kids in school now, but I'm still a taxpayer, and it's terrible for us to pay the amount of taxes that we do each year and find out that the kids are doing terrible in school. That's the whole deal. If you get all this money, why are they getting not passing grades in the grades that they're sitting in?
Hi, my name is Bob Sparling. I live in Raymond also. We have 3 children, and we actually worked extra jobs to put them through a private school because the school system we were in was more interested in other activities. And I think one of the problems now with the way things are funded is public school is actually a monopoly, a business monopoly, because you're guaranteed tax funds. And if there was a voucher program where you did not get that funding and people went to a private school, and you were run like a business, you'd be put out of business. Okay? Now, public schools have a minor problem, or actually it's maybe a major problem. You have to cater to every class of student. You have to deal with these students that have no interest and just want to slide through. You have people that have behavioral problems. You have people that have social problems that you have to cater to. When we sent our children to a public school, actually to a private school, the principal the first night said, there's a mandatory parent attendance, and if you don't show up for the attendance meeting before school starts, then don't send your school here. Furthermore, there was always parent support of the school system, the private school system, and they were very strict, and you had to behave. Now, those are issues that probably public schools have problems with. I was a substitute teacher for a while, and the behavior in the classrooms was atrocious. So I think if you had a voucher program, you'd be more careful as to what you were teaching and how you were handling your students. As far as the way books are approved, I was trying to read through your website as quickly as I could, and it looked like the superintendent is supposed to review the book list or delegate authority to someone else to review the book list. But that's as far as I got through the thing as to whether the books are actually signed off or whether there was a comment form saying why the books were approved. I personally don't think the genderqueer agenda is appropriate for the school system. I think it's a way of dividing the student body up. I think it's for the students that are seeking an identity, they morph into that groups that gives them some identity, and that's why it's becoming such a big discussion point right now. I think the schools should get back to, as Frank said, the major things of reading, writing, arithmetic. When I was doing substitute teaching, the students were dismally dumb. I mean, I would ask basic math questions in 8th grade that they couldn't handle. It's atrocious what the students are learning, and they're just not prepared for real life when they get out. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak this evening? I don't. Okay.
Adam Zajac, I'm a Wyndham resident. A month ago, I came here to speak, and I told you I'd be a thorn in your sides. And here I am. I'm still poking at you guys. You know, I never meant for this to get national coverage, but it did, and we're going to take advantage of it until the school system starts straightening up and listening to the community. It's really sad because I keep having to talk to my son about this, and the conversations we have are really pretty unreal, because this is actually an interview, just a snippet. He gave the closing thoughts at an interview last night on national news. I just want to play it for you.
Honestly, I think it's common sense to not have pornography in schools. Yeah. Just say those words to yourself. Pornography in schools. Now, after you say that, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel like it should be in schools or not? That's how I'm feeling about this.
Now, I love this community. My grandmother lived here ever since I was a young baby. I grew up in Gray, so I've been here for 41 years. I love the kids of this community. I coach these kids in this community, and I want nothing but the best for Wyndham and for the Eagles to soar, all right? There's no reason that we can't be the best we can be and have children that come out of here and succeed straight out of high school. Right now, it's really disappointing to see what's happening in the education system. And I just want you to know, until this gets figured out, I will keep doing national news interviews. And I already have 2 lined up for tomorrow. I want to say this, though. I would love to give one happy story. where I can tell them that you guys all smartened up and realized the wrongs that we're doing on our children and make it right. So give me the opportunity to bring great news and great words about the Windham community and RSU 14.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Anybody else?
Courtney Post-Vandenberg, Windham resident, parent, and educator. I would just like to say thank you to the board and the community for coming out to support the unified basketball team last night, winning their last game.
Beth Hall, longtime Windham resident. I just want to say for the third time that Windham really needs to be the model for all the districts in the area and the state of Maine to follow. If we become the school that decides what's right and not what's wrong, make everybody aware that they need to be respectful and love each other no matter what gender they are. We just have to get these pornography books out of our school system for these children and pay attention to the age appropriateness. Windham needs to be the model so that we can maybe, like Zach said, be national for the right reasons and not the wrong ones.
Yeah, right.
And the committee that selects these books or that you're going to review for these books, last week I was a little upset that only one parent was supposed to be on that board. And I really feel that there should be at least one parent, if not two parents, from every school in the district, and an unbiased lottery so that the parents are picked, and that means like an extra 10 or 12 people on your committee. And I think that's the way it should go, because it needs to be a truthful committee and a unbiased committee. So let Windham be the model.
Thank you. I'm looking around. Anyone else would like to speak? I don't see any air movement. I don't want to shut it off if somebody wants to speak, but I don't see anyone getting up. So this concludes public comment. Thank you all very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break to allow all of you who wish to leave to do so, and then we'll come back and get back to our agenda. Okay, I think we're ready to begin. Our next presentation this evening is our SU14 Technology Integrators, Christine Hassler, Director of Construction and Assessment, and we'll present a program update to the board, and Christine is right there.
Good evening. Thank you for being with us this evening. I am super excited to introduce 4 individuals who are bringing this extraordinary program and other talents to our students pre-K to 12. Tonight I have with me our elementary tech integrator, Susie Stevens. I have the famous Richie Vickers, who is our tech integrator at Jordan Small and Windham Middle School. I have Casey Dubé next to him. Casey is our elementary math coach, and Tammy Lorenzati is our tech integrator at Windham High School. They are going to share with you a little bit of an interactive presentation of the Lego grant that we have, and also share the other parts of their positions and what they do to integrate technology into our classroom. So, Mr. Vickers, are you ready? Or Susie? Oh, Susie's running it. Here we go.
Hello. All right. So we started this adventure back in September. Christine Hessler got an email about adding in computer science, and one of the computer science kits was Legos. We're like, Legos? What? kits. So we did more research and we decided that getting the Lego kits for K to 12 was going to be the best fit and choice for our district to help implement computer science. So we filled out the information, we got approved, and lo and behold, lots of pallets of Legos arrived at the high school. We spent many hours unboxing, putting together kits, looking through the units and really trying to figure out what would be best for our students in the age ranges. We started to build PD plans. How are we going to unleash these to staff? How are we going to introduce these to students? And really get the full bang for our grant. So not only did we get many of these kits, we had to figure out where to place them. How do we charge them, right? All the little nooks and crannies of things of how do we introduce this so that it's going to be efficient and teachers are going to want to have that buy-in and students find that buy-in of just the tidbit of computer science. So just a couple pictures. The one in the top left is at Jordan Small Middle School. We got shelves that were put together to organize the kits. Each kit is numbered. You'll see on the right is just one of our hub charging stations, and that's really the brain of the Lego kits. We call them a hub. And then the bottom is just a picture of us doing some PD at RES. One of the great things about this is that some staff, coding, what is that? Computer science. Oh, I'm really nervous. I'm not really good with science. But they knew Legos. And having that knowledge really built their confidence. So when they got to the coding part, they weren't as hesitant to try because they had already gone through building something that was so cool. They wanted to make it move, which was very similar to the approach with a lot of our students. So we're getting into a lot of classrooms, and teachers after the PD are like, okay, when can you come in? When can you come in? I'm going to be doing environmental science. When can you come in and help my kids do this build? So we've been doing about a 2-hour session or 2 one-hour sessions on just the Lego PD, the SOPs. This is how we use our kits. Here's a build. Try it out. Try out some code. If you feel confident, erase the code. Try your own code. See what you can make it do. And then we had, what?
Yes.
We had a fifth grader, and it might be a little long, but if you just think of this fifth grade student had an environmental disaster, right? He was trying to put out wildfires in California. So he used the Lego kits throughout his process. And I just want you to get a snapshot. He's really only had 2 hours with the Lego kits, getting the SOPs and building from one of the amusement park units. But his train of thought is amazing.
Sprayed out all the fire. These blue dots are the bases of the spray drones. So it's kind of where they like take off from. It's a lot. They're all spread out all around the places with their wildfire from. And then once there's no wildfire, this goes through. There's supposed to be flashing lights, but the hub is dying. And this guy got lost in the woods just a few days ago, and because he's ready for the wildfire, and he's running from the fire, but actually no, fire's up, and he's in the woods, and he sees flashing lights, and so he knows because this has been a thing in his town for a while. When he sees those flashing lights, he should come towards it. So, please get on into the fire and didn't even touch it. When you get done,
So his build was really great because he had to have two hubs, two brains, because he had so many sensors, but it would sense something that was green, and then it would stop, and then he recorded his voice, so when it saw something green, it would stop, and then it would say, please get on due to the fire. He coded his car to do all of those things. I mean, the things these kids are doing, it's just incredible.
Awesome. So at the middle school, we went to Jordan Small first, and we hit up the 5th grade and hung out with the 5th graders. Again, we're doing the first lesson is just our SOPs. These are our kits. These are why we have the kits. These are our purpose for the kits. This is how we're going to take care of the kits. And then we let them choose a lesson, and they do their build. After that, I got to meet with our awesome math coach, Casey Dubay, and we started to try and link together some of the specific standards that we could target. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So Richie brought the idea to me, and he's like, this is what we want to do. How this has to tie in somehow. And obviously, I'm like, of course it is. Let's dig in. And we're actually able to look through the current iReady Math program that we're using and identify not only specific standards that attached to the science that they were getting at, but then also the math standard and lessons that outlined what to do. So we did some pre-teaching about unit conversion, and that aligns with 5th grade. And then Richie was able to is taking that and implementing that and taking a full-size bridge and how to bring it down to now in Legos. So it's all coming together with us working together as a team.
Now we're going to go to high school.
Yes. So at the high school, through word of mouth, we went into the JMG classroom, which is Jobs for Maine Graduates. Jen Dumont had she always has a word of the week, and her word for the week before vacation was inspiration. So we brought our 20 Lego kits for the high school. They're a little bit different. The high school kits are a little more advanced than the ones that the K through 5 are using. So we brought those in, and all of her classes, which are grades 9 through 12, they all took time, and it was awesome, because that was our first experience at the high school, and honestly we were a little bit like, I don't know, are these going to be too young for them? And they are certainly not. So the programming is the coding is a little different than what they use. They use more of a block or Scratch, if you've ever done that. But we also, and then from there, we went into some math classrooms. So we've been to probably 10 or 15 classes here at the high school, and I did just a minute. If you want to play that video, there's like a minute of what happened. So this one, you can't really tell, but the way she programmed it, it's sensing the colors. Those are different colors on that Lego kit, and it spit them out based on the code and the color that was coming through.
That was in the weather.
Yes. It's all good. So this group, they made a car, and I don't know if you guys are familiar or anyone is familiar with the second floor here at the high school, but there is a big loop, and they were able to make their car go the entire loop. They programmed it so that it would go around the corners and so on. We had another student, we had some of our JMG kids made these cool grabbers, and we had some students do motorcycle, well, they look like motorcycle type bike sort of things as well. And I don't think it's going to play, so there you go.
And I just wanted to speak to going back to with the elementary, what Susie had said, that 5th grade classroom, and really highlight the environmental science behind that. So this classroom was doing a whole research project around environmental science, reading nonfiction books and a couple fictions, as well as a writing piece that went with it. So it was a really great way to bring all the content areas together. And then they were just excited, so they designed these to solve the problem. This environmental problem is where the wildfire one came from. So throughout the classroom, there was a variety of different ways to solve a problem that was researched. So leading towards that project-based learning. The tech crew with technical difficulties.
Sorry. I was trying to get this hub to connect, but I think it died. It's a Ferris wheel, and so it spins around and around, and the kids can change the speed and have it change direction. There's many ways they can alter this build. Just wanted to highlight, just in one simple build, it's cross-curricular. It reaches so many different standards. These are just what's on the LEGO website. There are many more that apply to just this one LEGO build, and that's not even including how the kids tailor it. So there's many different aspects that this matches. So we're not just all about Legos, even how cool they are, but there are many different things that we have done this year. Just for myself in elementary, I've done a lot with the Bee-Bots this year, so getting the kids just coding with the Bee-Bot robots, just simple directions, forwards, backwards, turning right, turning left, going through obstacles. Mystery science, we've really been trying to get that into classrooms so that students can have more access to different science curriculum. We've also been doing Seesaw as well as different technology integration support, BenQ boards. Oh, I was going to say.
Go for it. I was over here playing with Legos, sorry. So at the middle school, the 6th grade folklore read aloud presentation. So 6th graders have been studying in their ELA about folklore, fables, fairy tales, and the fact that they come from different parts of the world. So then it became a cross curriculum with social studies, and then we decided to add a technology piece to it so that the students could be assessed on their fluency by reading aloud these folk tales or fairy tales and being able to share them with the elementary school. So we're about halfway through. Some of the students have used a software called Canva to create slideshow presentations or posters that are also animated, and then they did a voiceover for their read aloud. They're also using Google Slides and iMovie to create the same thing. I'm also helping support what we're just kicking off, March Madness with historical figures. 8th grade teacher has picked out a bracket full of historical figures that the students are going to create what I like to call hype videos about that person. The teacher has already made a hype video about themselves because they're also legendary that she's going to use as the model for the students. So then after each student researches and builds their hype video on their historical figure, the students will watch with the bracket 2 historical figures hype videos and then vote to see who wins and advances through the March Madness bracket. So it's kind of cool giving it a theme. Digital posters, always a hit from 3rd grade all the way up to 8th grade. We're making posters and all sorts of stuff. And then the green screen videos are also a hit with the middle school for projects.
At the high school, we are working, one of our new things this year are Google Lit Trips, which are basically using the technology of Google Earth and integrating those with, for example, I hesitate to say this based on the conversations we were just having, but based on some of the books that we're using in the classroom, they can integrate Google Earth with and each student then works with geography as well as, for example, they can have their vocab beyond that list. So each teacher is creating their own lit trip for the students to take, and that also enables them to work sort of at their own pace. So you have some that will go through that more quickly than others, but it's available at all times for the students, and then they can go and create their own using the geography and words and things like that that they've learned through their English project. Social Studies has also looked at integrating this into some of their summative assessments. We've used the green screen here at the high school as well, and this year we started something new with ELO, Extended Learning Opportunities. We've created site templates, so students are using Google Sites to create their learning from the ELO class that they're doing outside of school. Also, every Tuesday, give or take a little, we have put out Tech Tip Tuesdays for the staff, and just with new updates for Google Classroom or any technology that we're using here at the high school. We all presented to the curriculum committee earlier this year in December, I believe it was, and so the links that are up here under elementary, middle, and high school are live links to the presentations that we gave to them, which give a much more in-depth explanation and view of what we've all been working on.
So due to the lateness of time, I get to make the decision, and I have the numbers written down, but if board members would like to take a Lego kit home to explore and kind of check them out, they are pretty cool. You are more than welcome to do that. If not, I'll take them back with me, but we just really wanted to share with you what this group of teachers, how they're integrating curriculum, how they're integrating all kinds of subjects together in an area where students are feeling really successful and it's very high interest. I will share that we had a big ELA meeting this afternoon, and one of the teachers explained, she said, I was so afraid to do this with my fifth graders because I was really worried they weren't going to behave, and they were the most engaged group of learners. And I think what this has taught us all is teachers know who their learners are in their classroom and what they need, and we're able to tailor their instruction based on that piece. So we thank you. I know this is a late night, but we really want to thank you for taking time to hear our story, see some of our products, and if you would like to dive further, I'll leave them up here, and at the close of the meeting, you're welcome to take one home. We're also happy to answer any questions if anyone has any as we're transitioning back.
Anybody have any questions? Terrific. Great presentation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you, Christine. We're going to move into superintendent's report. Mr. Hanoff.
Sure. So I've got a couple things that I want to share tonight, and also a couple comments that I want to make after public comment for some of the issues or things that were brought up tonight, just to make sure that the public has a full understanding. And I think what's difficult sometimes is that there's a full breadth of not only state laws, but federal laws and policies in which we are required to run the district, and I think that can be confusing at times, and I think sometimes people wonder why we do some of the things that we do, and so just a couple things. But before that, and I know we're going to talk about committees here in a second, but first of all, Wyndham Middle School construction project, which is also the Jordan Small Middle School project, as well as the Manchester Elementary School project. And sometimes we forget that we've got 3 different schools going along. It was actually nice to have Michelle Brand join Drew Patton for our meeting today in Augusta, to be able to then kind of look at how are we bringing together 2 principals with 2 staffs, and then also Ms. Danini has been very involved with that. We have a kickoff meeting with the Department of Transportation here in a couple weeks, in which we'll be looking at all of our site work as well as our traffic plans for that project. So a lot moving forward with. I had a chance to talk to somebody before we started tonight. There is a lot that's going to happen very, very quickly between now and a referendum in November. And while we have made great progress, we're still at that point where we are negotiating every single square foot and looking to finish that up. And I think today we were looking at 16 different areas across the proposed building. And again, it was great to have Michelle's input and Drew's input and Danielle's input on how we shape some of those spaces. Just a couple things that I just want people to know, first of all, is that policy IJJ has been around before RSU 14 existed. There was a policy IJJ for the Windham School Department, and there was a policy IJJ for the Raymond School Department. Policy IJJ, if you look at every other district that's out there, everybody has a policy IJJ. They're very, very similar. And something that Christine and I have been looking to unpack is really unpacking and helping for individuals become a little bit more transparent on our library processes, our purchasing selection process, and we will be looking to do an update for the board in the near future of some of the tools that were put into place that the librarians have had a chance to kind of talk through, and we think it's important. I think we think that's important not only based on the conversation, but just based on the policy itself and making sure that we are as clear as possible. Just also want to make a comment tonight because there was a couple comments made about transgender policy and how the RSU actually handles transgender policy. First and foremost, RSU 14 does not receive any money contingent on our transgender policy. Absolutely none. I know there were some pieces that were read that districts could gain or lose federal dollars based upon whether or not they follow what has been placed at the federal level. Maine is actually a state where transgender policy is in law. The landmark case for the U.S. came out of Orono, Maine, believe it or not, in 2014, where a student sued the Orono School District based on their ability to access restroom facilities based on their gender identity. That case went through Maine courts, went ultimately to the Maine Supreme Court, in which the district was found that it had violated the Maine Human Rights Act. And so that case is Maine law. So regardless of what has been passed for federal guidance, whatever discussion has happened for federal funding, this is Maine law, and as a public entity, we're required to follow it. Also for the business world, they fall under the exact same policy that we do under the Maine Human Rights Act. And so I think it's important for people to understand that just because a piece of guidance says that something is connected to dollars, this is connected to law and things that we're required to do. Just also want to comment on a couple other things is that our curriculum, with all of our curriculum guides, is on our website. And if you go to rsu14.org, look on departments, come down under departments, there's curriculum, and then there's like 6 tiles that are there. Go ahead and click on curriculum guides. Every single grade level's curriculum guide is there with every single subject area, as well as the books that are used within the general curriculum. It is a great resource for parents, and if parents wonder what is in the curriculum, what are the books that we actually have that are assigned to that, there's an opportunity to look at that listing that's there. And in addition, policy IMB, I think I've got that right, policy IMB, which gives parents the opportunity, if there's a book within that curriculum, that they can choose to opt out and ask for some alternate pieces for that. Also share our complete library holdings are on our website. You can go and click it, and in that case you have to go to the building, and then under the building go to library services, and there's a direct line there where you can see what is available to students. Parents also have the opportunity, well, if they want to go ahead and have a conversation with the librarian, books they find on the website that is not something that they want their student accessing, they have that opportunity. Also, parents have the opportunity to reach out to the library and ask what books that their student has out, and that's available already within policy. So I know that unless you spend a lot of time in policy and you spend a lot of time in law, it can be difficult to find many of these things. I know we've had some community members reach out and wonder about pieces of policy and where things are at. More than happy through email or through a one-on-one conversation to have folks come in, either myself, Christine, Lisa, any of the building principals, and just kind of walk through where on our website all of these different items are available, so that we can make sure that parents have the information that they feel that they need. Review committee is at work, and they will be, in the upcoming weeks, generating a report, and then I think we'll be kind of having an understanding from there what direction that we're going to be heading in. I know there was a lot of conversation tonight, but again, if anyone has any questions about some of the legal pieces or even some of the policy pieces, please reach out, and we will go ahead and answer those questions to the best of our ability and as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Go ahead. Enter into board roundtable. Anyone have anything that they would like to share this evening? Sure.
Thank you. So I have a couple of things. First is I've been on the board for 18 months, and one of the things that I've talked about pretty regularly is that my transition from being a taxpayer and parent to a school board member definitely proved my theory that I had abdicated the education of my child to the school system. And I think a lot of people do that. And one thing that really kind of sent this home for me recently was to learn that the books that are in question have been in the libraries for a long, long time, and nobody knew about it. And I say that kind of in quotes. You didn't know about it because you didn't pay attention. The books are on the website. People need to start paying attention. This didn't just happen yesterday. It didn't happen last week, last month. So I'm, like I said, just as guilty as anybody of abdicating my responsibility as a parent, and people need to start paying attention. And that's not a negative dig at the school system at all. That's rather just the opposite. Parents need to pay attention. I also want to just mention that I'm a graduate of Windham High School, and my daughter is a student here. She's here tonight. And she wanted to see what was going on because she heard scuttlebutt in the schools from the meeting last week. And she will be a very brave, staunch person one of these days. I keep waiting for it to pop out. She doesn't understand how I can get up in front of a bunch of people and say stuff and not be nervous, but she'll get there someday. But she wrote a statement, and she asked me to read it. Hello, my name is Phoebe Jewell. I'm a resident of Raymond and am an active student of Windham High School. I am not a great public speaker, so please forgive me for any mistakes I might make through this. I came up here to call out some adults. For those of you that have your own opinion and want others to respect that, you in return need to respect the others around you. That does not mean you can snicker and smile or say, "Oh my God," to your friends about others' opinions. You're making a fool of yourself. You're supposed to be an adult, not an immature middle schooler. You're the ones guiding us to the future. We should not be guiding you. Oh, and this message was to all of you, not just one side in particular. So thank you, Phoebe, for being the voice of reason at almost 16 years old in 2 weeks, and I am very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Today is International Women's Day, and many other countries in the world celebrate and highlight things going on that women have done and started doing and the highlights from their lives. I just want to point out a little story that I am so proud of my mother and learned so much from her. She went to the University of Michigan in 1953 from Maine to study naval architecture and marine engineering. Her dad was a shipbuilder, and they wanted all of the daughters to get education after high school. She wasn't treated very well, and fortunately, she survived a year. Many of her female classmates left after a semester. One thing that made me understand is that seeing role models and being encouraged was really important. And my parents always made sure that I knew I could do whatever I wanted to. I didn't have a female math or science teacher after 7th grade. I ended up majoring in math and deciding I wanted to be a high school math teacher, and now I teach at the college level, in part because of my mother's story and how poorly that how she and her other female classmates were treated. I am glad things are a lot different now, and how people are treated is really important, and it's illegal to do what they were doing to her back then. So International Women's Day, let's celebrate.
Thank you. Any of the board members? Just have...
I just want to say thank you to the public again tonight for the input. It feels really tough for everybody to be together, having that kind of conversation about books. And it hits really hard when you've got grown kids and young kids. We're sitting in a school and we feel uncomfortable saying the word book. That's not great. But we'll go through this together as a community, and I just want to say thanks. I think everything that was said here is important. And I think it's really important for our success so that everyone can come out, we talk about what the issue is, so that we have everything on the table and we work through the process. So I'll say thank you for the feedback tonight. I want to say also, just reiterate that, you know, Mr. Howell did outline a few things about process and what we're bound to. The board as a team here, as an elected team, we have to conduct ourselves in a certain way. We have to follow, we're beholden to Maine state law as well as the federal laws, and we don't have the ability to sit here and be passionate about something the way that public comment, you know, someone can come up. And just because we're not responding directly, I talked about this last week, doesn't mean that we don't have an opinion or that we don't feel passionately about working through the process and that we don't hear you. That's not it at all, but I would hope that you would understand that we're required to represent the students of this district in an unbiased manner and approach all the aspects of these responsibilities that are outlined really clearly in the Maine state legislature with a view to represent what is in the best interest of all parties involved, and we have to do that in an unbiased way. We've held a few meetings, we've had great public input. I have to say that I'm really disappointed with some of the comments and some of the communications that we've received criticizing administrators and our board team about not expressing our biased opinion. We're not supposed to be biased, and just because we're not responding in a way that maybe the public wants to hear out loud, that doesn't mean that we don't have an opinion, but it is our job to be unbiased and represent the students in these matters. So I just want to remind the public about that. And just ask for your patience as we work through the policy of IJJ and encourage members of the public to consider not only running for school board, but for select boards to represent towns, and also to continue to work, to Char's point, with your teachers, with administrators through processes to seek resolution. That's it.
Terrific. Thank you. I'm going to end if no one else has any comments on some good news. I'd like to congratulate the boys and girls basketball teams for their 2023 MPA Good Sportsmanship Award for Class AA North. I really think it's important. This is probably for me the most important award that our students could get. It far exceeds the goals, I guess the points, the wins that students achieve. For our students to go before the public and present themselves in such a manner that they receive this award, it just makes the community proud, board proud, parents proud. We're all very proud of the representation of Windham and Raymond. I also had, I'm kind of on a little sports kick tonight. I had the opportunity, which is rare for me because I was not very athletic, but I had the opportunity to attend the Unified Basketball Team game yesterday here in Wyndham. And for those of you who don't know what Unified Basketball is, and I had to look it up to get it right, Unified Basketball partners students with developmental disabilities with students without developmental disabilities to train, compete, and represent their school. And I have to say, last night, our cheerleaders were there, all 14 of them. There was a student group that they were cheering on these students. It was a sight to behold. The crowd was great. It was pretty full. We played against Scarborough. It was neck and neck. We didn't win, but that wasn't the point. It was 40-43. And at halftime, I tell you, if you could seen this, the cheerleaders were in the middle of the gym. Scarborough students, they made this big circle, and people were dancing to the music in the middle of this circle, and it was really, truly unified. So I want to thank Rich Drummond and the coaches for this amazing opportunity for our students, and for the spirit that all of our students, and there were a lot of staff there too, came to represent our towns. So thank you. Okay, we are going to move into committee reports. Finance, I don't think there is anything. Facilities, Chris, you've spoken about that, correct?
Yeah, next construction meeting is on the 23rd.
Okay. Policy isn't there. Curriculum, I don't think there is anything.
Yes, curriculum.
Okay.
We met on Monday, and we heard an update from the Social Studies Committee. It included a review of the main learning results, and I can tell you that K-12, they have been working very, very, very hard to go ahead and incorporate what they've been doing well, of course, everything, and incorporating the new learning results and making sure everything gets meshed together very well. We saw a draft of a unit template with all kinds of resources for the unit. The minutes to this meeting and all of the meetings are on the Curriculum Committee website, and as again a reminder, the curriculum for every department and every school and every grade level is on the RSU 14 website. The Curriculum Committee next meeting is April 3rd, and we will be hearing from the guidance counselors and social workers next time.
Thanks. Technology?
Okay, Mr. Hickey, I see you looking at me. Okay, so we've talked a lot about some of the transitions that the Tech Steering Committee's gone through recently. I thought it would be helpful to read the purpose of the committee just quickly, just to give a sense, because it does have a complex role, if that's all right. So they maintain a pulse on the technology needs across the RSU. They plan thoughtful implementation of new initiatives, the devices, and the resources that go along with those. Communicate about the challenges and the needs from both the network and system maintenance side, as well as the instructional side. So that's a really complicated relationship there to maintain and provide guidance and recommendations as the district plans for the future. So I noted before there's a few subcommittees here. The first one is curriculum and standards. We heard tonight from the tech integrators and the work that they're doing a little bit in our meeting tonight, talking about how to look at across the district to ensure that all the library services still have, I guess they're all on the same page when it comes to curriculum and the information that they're providing. They went through a number of brainstorming ideas, and I won't get into those tonight, but essentially looking at different ways that curriculum and technology can integrate from that side of things. Hardware and software is another subcommittee right now. And they're really looking through, doing a deep dive on interactive flat panels. So reviewing the BenQs, but also looking at other technologies based on the feedback and the way that those BenQs are used right now across the district. And then the last committee
is the publicity, marketing, and community relations. And this one is really interesting because that piece really touches all aspects of the district, and not just the board, but also communication with teachers and communication between parents and the school. And so we've talked a little bit about some of the technology that the district is looking at using in an app-based system in the future, so there's some discussion about that. And then also looking at our current infrastructure when it comes to using the website to garner feedback from the public, from parents, from our educators and the employees in the district on what we're doing well and things that maybe have room for improvement, and how to gather that in a thoughtful way, to look at it, disseminate it, and then create action items around it. So really interesting discussion in that publicity, marketing, and community relations team. That's all I have for now.
Perfect. Nothing vocational?
Vocational meets tomorrow.
Al Potter.
Yeah, I thought I'd take this opportunity to comment on a couple things that were said tonight. It was really disheartening to hear that a lot of parents were feeling that RSU 14 as a whole was letting down their kids educationally. That, I think a big theme was mentioned that we should just be teaching our kids, math, science, English, and math, and where are all of these life lessons, like learning how to do your taxes. And I don't think a lot of community members know that there's a senior personal finance class at the high school that I took the earlier semester. There were many students who brought in their W-2s from work and filled out a 1040 right there in class as part of the assignment. We learned about making a budget, how to buy a car, all of these different lessons that are super important that extend past the traditional classes. But at the same time, our district does a really great job in these other areas that are also really important. If you care about colleges, this school has consistently brought kids to some of the best universities in the world, but we also have kids who go to amazing tech programs and who are community members who have amazing businesses. So I think to say that RSU 14 as a whole is letting down its students is a pretty big misunderstanding. I think as a whole we do an amazing job, and we definitely do set a standard for communities around the area. That's all I got.
Can I brag on you just a minute?
Sure.
Al Potter, student representative extraordinaire, was accepted into Princeton, and several programs our students can achieve in RSU 14. So thank you, Al. Okay, we are going to move on to our really beefy part of the agenda, which is cost centers for our budget. And first up is Bob Hickey, who will speak to us about technology.
Bob, use the wired one.
What's that?
Use the wired one.
Use the wired one?
Please.
Is this on now? Yep, better. Okay. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight at the end of a long day. I'm sure you're all tired, and what more fun than to listen about more technology. So, the overall budget is only 0.58% up, which is good news. There's not radical expenditure this year. I just wanted to give a shout out of what has happened in the year we're in before we launch into the budget for next year. So the printers, copiers were upgraded last summer. The camera systems were upgraded last summer. The BenQ panels, and as Jody mentioned, we're looking at ClearTouch and Promethean, other options there. Network support, a lot of that has happened in this past year. The staff was converted from Office 365 to Gmail over the summer. We threw in a Wyndham Middle School phone system because that went south on us. So there's been an awful lot of projects, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all the folks on my staff, the facilities staff that we partner with many, many projects, and the support from all of you. So jumping into the budget, well, before I jump into the budget, there's only two major expenditures that we're buying this year. One is for iPads, mostly for grade 1. We're getting 100 for Wyndham Primary School, 25 for Raymond Elementary School, and another 10 for to replace the 5 in the high school and another 5 in assorted areas, sometimes special ed. We're currently running version 6, 7, 8, and 9 iPads. The 6s are already off support. The 7s are soon to be off support, so we're buying 9 to replace those, so hence the 135 units. And in addition to that, we're getting partial funding from the state MLTI program to swap out the 10th grade devices. So the cost of these two projects will be, for the iPads, $18,000 a year for a 3-year lease, so it comes out to $54,000. And for the 10th grade devices, the state pays $459 of the complete price, which generally is around $1,200 a unit. So that will cost $45,000 a year over 4 years for $180,000 over 4 years. So those are our two big projects. Other than that, we're not getting anything huge. We have some significant but not large software expenditures. Some of them we've introduced new software like the Frontline Time Management. Ninja One is one of the network maintenance programs. We've got Trend Tractor and EBSCO software. And we're looking at Blue Spruce monitoring. It works with our SOFOs for detection and response of ransomware, which we don't want to get caught up in, like some districts have. Fortinet firewall support and Landsweeper IT management. So as I ramble on those titles, those are what's new. Mostly it's continue what we've always had, continue to support the software titles that we've always had for the schools and the networking software that we've always had. And at this point, I'm ready for questions.
Can you remind me who the network support contract is with?
We have one with Systems Engineering and one with Vodavi. And the reason we have that is we have Systems Engineering is the largest network support in the state. They have like roughly 70 engineers. And then sometimes we need quicker, more nimble, and so we go through Vodavi, and they're a much smaller company. So depending on the project, the resources we need, and how quickly we're in dire circumstances, we'll tap one resource or the other. And then we reach out to both to make sure that we're following best practice, because we know what we think is the right thing to do, but we ask the experts as well as we go forward.
And I was kind of surprised to see Infinite Campus, iReady, and Seesaw says paid for by the state, but technically not in this budget. Has it always been that way?
It's just a 3-year grant funding, and I think we're in year 2 of 3. I believe that's where we are in the cycle.
Next year is the last year of iReady.
Right. Yep.
And then lastly, I saw Windows PC replacements. Who's still running PC?
Well, a lot of the office staff are still. A lot of central office is. Like the payroll people, they're all Windows platform. Accounts payable, still a lot is happening. And then some of the secretaries in some of the buildings, some of the cameras that we're watching are on PC. So it's easier to hook a second monitor to that than necessarily, because you get a fixed size with the Windows, with the Apple laptop. So if you need bigger screens, it supports more screens more readily and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's on page 80 of 250. And it's the expenditure, I think I'm reading this right, $120,000 for repairs. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, that is correct. And so we set aside that for the MAC repairs. And if you look at my year-to-date expenditure, I've got like 80% of that left. But the reason for that is a lot of the overhaul doesn't happen till the summer. We stack up and minimize what's gone out because, impact on spares. And then people will limp along with something that maybe has a cracked case, but it's still plenty usable. They'll get to the end of the year. If they're missing like a cursor key or something that the kids don't use all the time, sometimes they'll limp along to the summer. So that gets put aside for the self-insured laptop fund where we fund our own repairs. We used to go through an outside insurance company and now we self-fund, so that covers that. And most of that is spent across the summer when a lot of the machines are sent out for repair.
So my understanding, parents can purchase, or students purchase laptop insurance,
Yes,
and that's folded into this.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a separate revenue that's not showing here of where we actually hold funds off to the side for laptop repair. This is the expense portion of it that's showing up.
Are the fees that parents pay cover basically?
Yes, right. Unless it's like intentional abuse, it's covered. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I just had a quick question, and in the interest of time, maybe I could just ask you to remind us how you choose to replace iPads. I think maybe the public might be interested in that, just generally.
Sure.
And then my second question is, if we look at introducing new software that might be in an app form and replace some of our current software, generally speaking, would that be a net neutral as far as you might be able to predict, and we wouldn't have an extra cost next year?
Well, that is our goal, Jody. Thanks for bringing that up. So, like the application that comes to mind is Parent Square that we're looking at for media transfer and interaction with the public. Right now we have a myriad of software applications that do a myriad of things. So we have Blackboard for just emergency announcements, and it does attendance announcements as well, but that's all it does. And then we have like Edlio for our web, and on and on and on. So we're trying to consolidate into one application, Parent Square, and that will take over both the emergency notifications, because the service on that is kind of like slipping most recently in the last few years as that company's getting bought out. And then the PTC Fast for scheduling parent-teacher conferences. We're trying to consolidate all those things into one interface that parents can install one application and get multiple hits, because nobody wants 40 applications on their phone. They won't keep up. And then if people aren't installing those apps, then they won't get our messages when we're sending them out. So as an efficiency, yes, we are consolidating on that. And then to answer your first question about how we pick iPads, it's always been our policy to run computers until the wheels fall off. So most of our iPads, even if they're off warranty, they're still running. So rather than say we're going to just replace a grade level or 2 grade levels with a certain number, we say, what do we really need to get by with now? And so that's what we came up with the 135 units. That'll get us by for now. It will replace the ones that are no longer usable. If an iPad gets so old that it won't support modern apps, then it'll get sunsetted earlier. But as long as it's workable and practical, we keep it going. Why not? Thank you.
Any other questions for Bob? Thank you, Robert.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
I'd like to ask Bill Hanson to come down and speak to us about facilities. Welcome.
Good evening. Kind of figured for facilities to be more of a crowd here, but apparently not many people are excited about that. That makes my day. There you go. I'll get closer to it. How's that? A bit better? Okay. Well, it's great to be here. I'm sorry it's so late. I'll try to be quick, but I do have a fair amount to cover. First, I want to start off with a big thank you to the staff of the Facilities Department. It's a tremendous undertaking to maintain 600,000 square foot of building in the way that we maintain them. And one of the things I constantly get comments from folks is our buildings really look nice when the public comes into the buildings to being here for the various events. And one of the things our goals in our department is to make sure that when the students, staff come in here, that the buildings are presented in a nice way so the day starts off in a positive manner. If you start off on your first step in a positive manner, it's only going to be, a good way to start. So I really want to thank my staff because many of them work hours at night, are not seen, and the difference they make every day is I tell them their job is to get the schools ready for the next school day and do whatever it takes, and they do that every night. So a big thank you to them. So some of you have heard this before. Some of you have not, so it's new to you. So this is our mission statement, and I really believe this is really important. In fact, a few people have heard me talk about being like Disney and such that we make the buildings right and okay, you never see what goes on. That's really important, but our goal is to operate them and maintain the RSU 14 properties in such a way that allows the instructional staff to focus solely on the important educational deliverables without distraction from building systems or maintenance issues. This will be accomplished through planned maintenance, continued efforts to improve efficiencies, incorporating the latest energy efficiency saving technology and methods, and implementing long-term solutions to operational building issues. That's our goal. That's a pretty lofty goal. We don't always meet it. I'll be honest with you. We try our very best, but that's really what our goal is of our department. So I think it's important that the board understands a little bit about the building stock that you have. Our new school, our brand new school, is now 19 years old. So a child that was born when this construction was started now is in college. So just think about that just for a minute. It's not a new building anymore. Our middle school was brand new 46 years ago. So there's a few people in this room that weren't even alive when that happened. Okay. Field Allen, unfortunately, has been renovated. I want to thank the board for that because the original building was built in 46. But we've renovated a fair amount in the last few years, and it's really in a good place now. It's a really lovely building. Last renovations happened the summer of '22. Primary school was a groundbreaking school built for our elementary students. Brand new in '89, is 34 years old. Manchester School was renovated in 2000. The original school was actually built in 1970. So I'll give you 23 years old for that building. Raymond Elementary School, again, another new building, 1999, so 24 years old. So, and Jordan Small renovated in 2001, 22 years old. So our average age of our school building are 24. So they're pretty much graduated from college now, and they're out in the working world. So that's where we're at, okay? And why is that important to know that? So one of the things we look at is guideline age of different equipment, how long it will last. Generally, equipment such as HVAC and roofs and what have you will last 25 to 30 years. I've just told you your average age is 24, okay? So it gives you an idea where we're at, you know. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So roofing is an area that's usually about, you might get 30 to 35 years out of a roof if it's well maintained, and we do maintain a roof well. We have PMs with different contractors. But you're looking at high school roof, again, as we look at the age of it, isn't that 18, 19 years old. So roofing, we're in a good place, and the older roofs you have replaced, which is great. The areas of concern are the middle school, Wyndham Middle School. The built-up section of the roof is actually right around 24 to 25 years old. It's not in great shape. My plan for that is to get us through maintenance between now and the next 4 years. If I were to replace that section of roof, you're probably talking around $600,000 to do that. So we'll maintain that one. So that is one I may have missed the mark on not interrupting education. But we'll do the best we can to maintain that. The other roof that's in question that we've been working on is Jordan Small and the gym storage. So we'll be working on replacing that. The good news is we just recently replaced some siding on Jordan Small. I won't spend too much time with that, but I think we finally solved the water leaking issue into the gym storage. That's been there since roughly 1989. We finally solved that, so that's a great thing. So we have a plan to move forward with that. So overall, roofing, we're in good shape. Great news is the heart of the plant, the boilers, the board, you have done a great job in replacing those as well. So we look at our major buildings, our high school, our boilers are, now are approaching 2019, they were new, so they're approaching 4 years old. Again, those have a life of about 25 years to 30 years. Middle school is, again, not in a great place, but again, we're looking at, being out there in 4 years. The average, those boilers are 19 years old. Field Allen, we'll put a new boiler in right now. Primary school, we have one that's 6 years old, the one that's 33. So 33 is scheduled to be replaced. It's beyond its useful life at this point in time, but it's still operational. Manchester School, we've got 2 new boilers in 22, so we're in good shape there. Jordan Small, we had 2 new boilers in 2019, 4 years old, so that school is in great shape. And Raymond Elementary School, that one boiler was 24 years old. We have a plan for that as part of the HVAC upgrade, so we're going to work towards that. Okay, so I won't go through too many more things other than this summer is going to be a really exciting summer in that you're providing major upgrades to the mechanical systems in Manchester School and primary school, replacing equipment that's in the 20-plus-year-old. So it's very exciting in that we're going to bring those buildings into modern equipment that will be not only provide a better environment for the students, but also will save energy through energy recovery systems will be part of the new system. So I'm very excited about that. So as you look at my budget, the key things to look at is I have 3 funding formulas, 3 funding areas. Maintenance improvement projects are cash that's in the budget. And if you look at those are scattered throughout the maintenance lines in the budget. It makes it confusing to follow the budget because they don't stay in the same place every year. So you may see the high school go up one year, and then it goes down, it goes back up and goes down. I wish the DOE would let me to fund the maintenance improvement projects under one cost center, one area, so you could follow it year to year. But I think it's confusing the way they do it, but it's how it's done. Capital improvement projects are lease purchase. Those are listed under one location, which makes it easy for you to follow that. So those are purchases that we're going to buy over the course of the year. And finally, our capital reserve project is a project we use year-end fund balance to fund. One of the projects we'll be looking at that will be the Manchester School project. So those are the 3 funds that we look at. So this is always the part that I want to make sure everyone understands, that the current asset value of our school district is in between $200 and $240 million. If we lost it all tomorrow and had to replace it, we'd be in that range. That's not counting the land. It was the land to be even more. So we assumed that everything lasts 50 years. I would need between $4 and $4.8 million a year just to keep replacing things that are wearing out. That's a big ticket number, since my entire budget for my department is around $6. Okay, so just to give you an idea, that's what it costs to keep this place running. So the budget has a large increase this year. It's around $661,000. Heating, fuel, and electricity make up about $181,000 of that, or about a third. Contracted services increases, which is all the work that I have done through contracted services, because remember, for maintenance, we have 2 staff members. So I do rely heavily on contracted services to do all the other heavy lifting. That's about $82,000. We have $63,000 increase in school safety deal when you look at the crossing guard and then additional SRO. Right now, I'm sorry to say, it's about almost $79,000 on substitute custodian. I'm down 3 custodians today as we speak, as we're trying to clean the buildings. No one wants to work as far as trying to hire new staff, so we're having to work with temp services to fill that, and those are expensive. So that's an increase. Salary and benefits account for about $197,000, and R&M and miscellaneous about $60,000. So my increase overall is 9.9, which is, I wish I could tell you it could be lower than that. But I also would tell you that one thing you have been doing a great job of doing is, when I got here, I think there was around $200,000 in capital. And if we look at the money you're spending between the current MIP, CIP, and revolving renovation funds, we're more up into around that, we're approaching that $2 million range. So it's not the 4.8 I'd really like to have, but in reality, what you're doing is you're keeping these buildings so that they're in good shape, and it's going to prolong the life, and it's going to make it more efficient and keep the environment the way that I think it should be, and the way that the kids and the students and the staff should see it be when they come in. So with that, I won't go any longer because I think I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the budget.
You brought up the additional SRO. It actually wasn't on the first cover sheet. Was that an oversight? From year to year, I just said one, there should be two.
On my cover sheet, I don't know that the staffing sheet, actually, I don't cover those, and I probably should put those on mine, on the version I have of version 5.
Okay, I thought it was safety security. That's not what the SRO is. That was something else.
No, that is different. Safety and security is a position that Mike Duffy holds. He deals with our workman's comp, our safety, and also assists in the facilities department.
Okay, and you brought up the substitute custodians, and I just thought it was interesting. It was actually listed twice in two different ways, and that's just a bookkeeping issue. I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I can. So one's under contracted services, that's the Bonnie, and the other is under actual substitute custodians. We do have a few people, we have kitchen staff and what have you that will work for us on a substitute basis as well, so they get charged under that portion. So there's two different funding mechanisms.
Okay, and lastly, you had a decent budget for overtime, custodial overtime. Is that because of the vacancies that we have, or is that standard that even if you're fully staffed, you can have overtime?
So weekend activities are all overtime. Okay, I've tried like crazy to find a weekend custodian. I would love to hire one tomorrow if I could. And their crickets are what respond to the ads that I put out. So, great questions though.
Can I just add one thing? The school resource officers are split costs with the town, and so they are town employees, and so it's actually a contracted service or a payment that we do to the town of Wyndham for their services.
You've already spoken. Kind of spoken.
I answer to that too, it's fine.
Can you speak a little bit about snow removal? That seemed to really bump up.
It's one of these contracted services that has bumped up, and the thing I'll tell you is that the going rate for all these different services has increased tremendously. And there being pressure between fuel and trying to maintain their employment, the costs have gone up, medical has gone up, and it has gone up very much, both in Raymond and in Wyndham. I wish I had a better answer for you than that, but it is where we're at with costs right now on some of these things. And, I don't know if COVID's part of it, whatever, but everything is, projects that I could do for $10,000 5 years ago, I'm spending 20 or 25 to get done. And you competitively bid it out, and you're lucky to get one person to bid on the project if you're there, and it's, I wish I could tell you all that I come in under budget off, but usually we get a project and Chris and I are figuring, okay, what are we going to cut so we can meet the budget that we put together. So.
People, we need people. My final question is, can you speak a little bit about the hourly that you hire for the summer and what work they do?
Sure. So we have a great combination of summer staff that we hire. First of all, we hire a paint crew, and it's really a key part of touching up and repainting things. So that's one part of the budget. And I've talked to the facilities directors, and I can't believe that we have that resource. And again, constantly staying on this. It's kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, right? You start on one end and you work towards the other side, and when you get done, you start all over again. It's important that we continue to do that. So that's part of it. And we also try to hire additional custodial summer help, which is usually from other staff members that don't work in the summertime, to help with the heavy lifting of cleaning the buildings. Because again, we're taking, if you want to think about a 2,000 square foot house, we're taking 300 of those, we're throwing everything outside, cleaning everything that we took out, cleaning the floors, cleaning the walls, and putting it all back in again in the course of about 6 or 7 weeks. So we do bring extra staff in to do that.
Thank you. Anybody?
Questions?
This might be more something Chris could answer, but just a few of the custodial salaries. I'm on page 15 of 250. There's some percentages there that might reflect what I think would be placeholders for our current contract negotiation for support staff. Is that fair to say? Yeah, 15 of 250.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. And then I guess, Bill, remind me on the last page, 47 of 250, I should know this, crossing guard. Where do we have crossing guards right now?
That's up at Manchester.
Just that we still have them at Manchester. I wasn't sure if that got resolved. Is that just one individual or two?
Right. That's one, and that's we hired that through the fire department.
Okay.
That person is a certified fire rescue, and they need to have that certification and be doing that work to stop traffic on 302.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's all I had.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Bill. I have to say that our grounds and our buildings are really so well maintained, and they're really the face of the community that the community sees for your issue 14. And I know you work like a dog, and your staff is just stellar. And given the shortage of staff that you have, I think it's remarkable what you're about to accomplish. So thank you.
Well, the support that you have all given me in the 13 years I've been here has been tremendous, and it allows me to do what I can get done, and the staff have been great. But I've talked to some of the facilities directors in other districts, and they don't receive the support that I do, and I feel very fortunate, so thank you.
Thank you. Love to talk about school nutrition. Jeannie Riley.
Hello. It's kind of late to be talking about lunch, but we can do that. So often my budget doesn't include much of an increase. We pretty much maintain things as a status quo as much as possible, but the pandemic brought many, many changes to school nutrition, and so you can see that we have a fairly large increase this year as we did last year. Our mission, Bill started with his mission, and I will start with that too, is to feed healthy food to children so that they can learn and achieve academic success. And I think that we do that, and I think we do it very well. And we're doing it more and more and more. We are feeding almost 50% more lunches than we did pre-pandemic. We went back to like the school year of 2019 and crunched those numbers because they were probably our last most normal year. And we were feeding between 1,500 and 1,600 lunches a day, and we're now serving between 2,200 and 2,300 lunches a day. Breakfast is similar statistics. We're regularly serving between 1,500 and 1,600 breakfasts a day. Pre-pandemic, it was about 1,000, maybe 1,100. So we've seen phenomenal growth, and that has really required us to add positions. So we have in our budget for next year, we've added 3 full-time positions, one for Windham High School, one for Windham Primary School, and one for Raymond Elementary School, really to accommodate the increase in participation that we're seeing, especially in those buildings. Some of those positions right now we are filling with subs and piecemealing subs out here and there, parts of days, just to really relieve my staff as they're just working so hard, making them, giving them extra help so that they actually have time to take a break. And to do the work that we've been doing of continuing to provide scratch cooking and wholesome food, fresh fruits and vegetables to all the children. So 3 full-time positions, and in addition, last year, from last year's budget, and when we came back this year, we found that we were so busy that we took 3 positions and bumped their hours up from 5.5 hours to 6 hours. So those people became full-time people as well. So I think on the cover sheet, you would see that we had an increase of six FTEs. It's because we've taken 3 people that were existing and bumped them up from part-time to full-time. Full-time is 30 hours. And then the other increases in our budget are to add or replace existing equipment, either equipment that is old. We have an old, very old stack oven at Wyndham Primary School that's original to the building, and it's time to replace it. And so we're hoping to do that this year. So it will be, we had some extra funds left over from last year, so we're hoping to purchase that oven this year. But also in the budget is another combi oven for Wyndham High School and a tilt skillet for Manchester School, and then this year as well, so that it doesn't impact next year's budget, we have some significant repairs to Jordan Small's walk-in cooler, but we think we're going to be able to accomplish that within this year's budget. So that's really, I think, all I have to, the other thing, the big ugly thing is that food prices. So when you're cooking food for more children, of course it takes more food. Making that issue more complex is, as I'm sure all of you know, because you all eat food and you all do your grocery shopping, is that food is costing a lot more money. A serving of fruit and vegetables is hovering around 135% more than it did just a year ago. Everybody knows about eggs. We were paying $30 a case for eggs. We've paid upwards of $90 a case for eggs. So center of the tray items, like our protein foods, especially as they relate to chicken and eggs, are much, much more expensive. Anywhere from 100 to 300% increase. In part due to the bird flu that impacted the poultry market all across the country, and in turn is reflected in the egg market as well. And it takes a long time. I was just at a conference and having a conversation with somebody who works in the egg brokering, whatever, and he was saying it takes so long to take chicks and get them to the point where they're laying eggs, and then get those eggs to the place where they're in the market. It's not as simple as it seems, and it's not as fast, and it's taking a long time. And if one bird in the coop or in the farm gets the bird flu, they have to kill all the chickens. So it's just been this bird flu that you've probably heard about on the news is really severely impacting food prices as they relate to chicken and eggs. Our dairy, we're paying 20% more for our milk. And in addition, we go out to bid cooperatively with many other schools in York and Cumberland County, but no one is really interested in our business anymore. There's not a high markup for schools. They're not making a lot of money on schools, even though we're the largest restaurant in every community. The school nutrition program is usually the largest food service establishment, or we like to call ourselves the largest restaurant. But so when it comes to milk, only one dairy bid on our business, and once they get wind of that, they start to realize, well, they're having increased costs. It's hard to get truck drivers, and so they're just passing those costs on to us. So we're paying more for everything. Everybody is, whether it's in creating school meals for students, or whether it's in your home, everything is costing more, and that's just reflected in our budget as well. But the other part of that is right now we're operating, as you know, all children are eating for free, and we're getting full funding for every single meal, whether it's a free student or a full price student. Any difference in what we get from our federal subsidy, the state is subsidizing, and that is going to happen again next year. And there is extra funding that we are currently receiving to help mitigate the costs of the inflation that was was related to COVID, and we are getting right now 15 cents for extra for every breakfast and 40 cents extra for every lunch. But that funding is set to end at the end of June. But there are currently 2 bills in federal legislation to keep that, make that extra funding permanent. So who knows what will happen, but you know, I was just in Washington talking to our state senators and our representatives about this, and you can't go anywhere in Washington without paying $4 for a cup of coffee, or $4 even for a extra large bottle of water that you're going to carry around with you. And that's what we're expected to create, a school meal with $4, and that needs to include not just everything on the tray, the fruits, the vegetables, the center of the plate items, the carton of milk, everything that we serve, but that $4 also needs to encompass what we pay our staff, the benefits that we pay our staff, the supplies that we use, our chemicals, our trays, if we're using disposable trays, any silverware, any disposable items that we use at all, that $4 needs to be the entire cost of that. Right now, we're getting $4.33 per meal, and we certainly hope that it stays that high. And that's all I have for you folks, so you can ask away.
Anybody?
I was going to ask about the equipment, so thank you for answering that question. So my only other question was about a line item that's in every single budget, but I'm picking on you. Can you tell me what fringe benefits are?
Chris, is that our benefits package? Yeah, like our medical, dental, days off, things like that.
It's also some of the benefits that are given to some of our directors, as far as, and employees for 403B match, those types of things as well.
I didn't think it was health insurance, because I think that's a separate.
Oh, yeah. So like as Chris is referring to, some of us aren't part of like Maine State Retirement, and we have like a 401k type plan.
So if they're retired.
Yep. Just also want to mention, Jeannie lives outside the budget, so she's expected to be cost neutral, and so to raise all the revenue that she needs to in order to be able to cover the program. Because of the increased subsidy, we have reduced the food service transfer that had typically been in the budget, which is around $100,000. That has been reduced out of the budget. We do not expect that we will need to transfer any funds this year, and that's actually the first time in a long time where we haven't had to consider that.
Yeah.
I have to say, we're exceedingly fortunate to have you as Director of Food Service. I know you're statewide known and probably nationally known for the quality that you provide our students, and all you have to do is look on Facebook or any of the other social media and see the beautiful meals that you prepare with Chef Ryan as well. The other activities that you do with students, I think we're just so fortunate, and I just want you to pack them up so that I can bring them home to me and eat.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm so grateful to have a wonderful team from Chef Ryan to every single one of my managers and my cooks, and soon to be my new cooks assistants, or my assistant cooks. But I also want to say I am so grateful to work in this district. I've never worked for a better team, with a better team of administrators, and I know these are rough times, and I'm just honored to work here.
We're very lucky to have you. Thank you so much. Last but not least, the wheels on the bus. Come on down, Mike Kelly, and talk transportation.
Good evening, everyone. In looking at the proposed budget for FY24, the increase is rather minimal. It's under 1.5%. And there's really it's more or less a maintenance budget in that some of the things that we normally get year after year, I think in the one of the cover pages here, the request form, it talks about obtaining 2 buses. We typically get 2 buses or 3 buses, depending on the capital replacement plan and depending on our subsidy too from the state. It's also requesting a bus aid for the regular fleet, and this is not for special education. We had a discussion, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, excuse me, and it was a few months ago, I believe it was. We were actually thinking about more because of the budgetary constraints we agreed upon. One, the challenges that we're having now with students' behavior on the buses is becoming significant. And there are some days that it's not only my office, but the administrators within the respective buildings are consumed with this behavior. And it's, at some point, we try to troubleshoot different buses if we have additional personnel, which is rare. But we need somebody to be able to roam the buses to assist the drivers in student placement, who they can be with, who they can't be with, and those type of behaviors that we're facing on a daily basis. The budget itself supports 33 buses and 22 vans. All the buses lie within my operation, but of the 22 vans, even though we support, we provide support for Katahdin, they also have 6 of those vans, plus we also provide 1 van for building and grounds as well. On a daily basis, we're running 5 Raymond routes, 20 Wyndham routes, and we're putting on over 600,000 miles a year on the fleet. And so the regular routes usually consist of what we all know is to and from school, athletics, field trips, vocational runs, and in some cases, the late runs as well. We, as our operation, are actually running 11 van routes, which consists of the in-district, out-of-district, and what's commonly known as the homeless students, which is under the McKinley-Vento Act. So that all becomes a challenge on a day-to-day basis. So generally speaking, that's what the budget consists of, and I will welcome any questions that you may have.
I'm kind of surprised that we didn't already have a bus aid. I just knowing how distracted my own 2 kids are to me as a driver, how will you choose where this bus aid is, or are they going to rotate through?
It will, a lot of it, it's on a day-to-day basis. It's a combination of a lot of factors, and depending on what behaviors are rearing its head, and sometimes the skill set of some of the drivers aren't always equal, so we try to balance that and at least try to get some control. One of the biggest things is the matching of students on a seating plan. And so sometimes we'll have somebody go on the bus and work hand in hand with the driver to try to create that seating plan, that seating chart.
Thank you.
Sure.
I probably missed something here, but on the cover sheet it says van driver. I think the differential looks like you're going down by 1.5.
Right, and I think that was more was just cleaning up some things. I think there were some positions that were in there, and it was portions of van drivers, and they actually were vacant for several years. So we cleaned them up, because a lot of our van drivers, when you see the numbers itself, I believe Katahdin has 4 of those full-time equivalents, and we have 3. And so there's like little fractions of other positions in there, but a lot of the drivers that we have for special services are considered what we call spare drivers, even though they drive a regular route. The previous positions didn't match what the needs were, and so we're not paying. We don't pay benefits on the spare positions. We do give them earned paid leave on a formula of every 40 hours they get 1 hour, but effectively it's easier to hire as a spare than those other positions, and a lot of it has to do with the pay too.
Okay, so it's just the 0.5 for the van driver.
Right.
And
well, the 0.5 is something, and I forgot to mention, that is something that's being proposed by Katahdin, was inserted in the budget. I don't know what their specific needs were on that, but that was inserted in the budget.
Okay, yeah, that's all I had.
Sure.
I just noticed on page 168 that there's an amount in here for contact tracing for $8,400. What is that about?
Yes.
I'm hoping I would never hear the phrase contact tracing again in my life.
Well, I think what we can do is actually change it, what's being identified. What that money is, it continues to support the tablets that are in the bus. And so we originally acquired them. We had done so with some of the federal money that was available, and that's what we use for the contact tracing. Well, we continue to maintain the tablets in the bus, but the money itself is for the cellular connection for the tablets. So we can, that's when we start logging students on and off the bus. It actually does turn-by-turn directions. It helps the drivers in that they do their pre-trip and post-trip electronically as opposed to the paper method.
I just have a final question on 171 and 250. Student transportation from private sources, that's bumped up. I wonder if you could speak to that.
The transportation by private resources, I think that what captures, especially with McKinley-Vento students, if sometimes we're paying the parents directly if they agree to do that.
Oh,
because
parents to transport.
Correct, their own children. And it's been a tool that's been utilized more over the last couple of years. It's because, especially when you're dealing with the McKinley-Vento students, they're unpredictable. And the thing is, depending where they're residing, we just don't have the staff available. And certainly, when the request comes in, it's almost you need to turn around within 48 to 72 hours, which is impossible. So that's why we use that as a tool.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions for Mike Kelly? No? Well, thank you to all of you who presented tonight. I know you've had a long day already and it's a long night, so appreciate your time and your information. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 11, report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the March 1st, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much and good night.